Chapter 2:14. The mountains are beautiful and the mountains are colorful. The saber array kept changing its formation. Saber light flashed, and shadows flashed. Ask me which part of the country looks like a disease. Zhang Chen flipped 16 times on the stage with a saber in his hand. While doing so, he kept changing the moves of his saber, creating beautiful saber flowers. The other students followed closely behind him and did 16 flips. Let's open up a path of blood. We must devote ourselves to the prosperity of our country. How can we let our country be trampled again? The sleeping lion is waking up. Zhang Chen and the students merged into one, like the thousand flowers guanyin, forming a long line of slaughter that was impossible to guard against. The long line danced on the stage with a powerful momentum, sweeping away everything in its path. The music ended, and the saber array stopped. Zhang Chen waved his hand, and the students behind him moved forward in small steps, forming a neat human wall with him at the center. Salute! Zhang Chen shouted. All of them raised their sabers with one hand and pointed the tip at the roof of the auditorium. Clatter! The audience burst into thunderous applause. Zhang Chen led his disciples away from the stage. The students below the stage were still extremely excited. So cool. Those saber wielders were so cool. Amazing. This is martial arts, the real Huaxia Kung Fu. Those guys always beat us up. What is Kung Fu? Fang Yan asked. This time, he did not wait for an answer. He gave his own answer. It's not just fighting and defending, it's not just fighting in sports. It's the culture of Huaxia, the national confidence, the unyielding soul, and the invincible capital. In the text Banquet at Hongmen, Xiang Zhuang performed a sword dance with the intention of killing Duke Pei. This sentence clearly tells us that Xiang Zhuang must be an expert swordsman. Otherwise, why would Fan Zheng summon him to perform a sword dance to kill Lu Bang? When Fan Kuai learned that Xiang Yu wanted to kill Lu Bang, he said, "This is the last resort. Please come in and share the same fate." With sword and shield in hand, Kuai entered the army gate. Fan Kuai slammed his shield into the guard, causing the guard to fall to the ground, allowing Kuai to enter the camp. If Fan Kuai's martial arts were weak, would he have dared to barge into the camp with a shield? If he wasn't strong enough, I'm afraid he wouldn't even be able to deal with the soldiers at the entrance of the barracks, let alone the guards in Kuai's sway. Isn't that right? The students below the stage roared with laughter. They had just listened to the blood-boiling music and seen the blood-boiling saber array. While they were madly in love with Huaxia's martial arts, Fang Yan just happened to closely connect Huaxia's martial arts with the texts they had studied, which made them feel very immersed and had a strong desire to learn and understand. At this time, it was no longer Fang Yan forcing them to learn something, but they were eager to learn something. Fang Yan didn't bring his textbooks, but the students did. When Fang Yan was talking about the banquet at Hongmen, the sound of pages being turned rang out from the audience. They wanted to find the original text and read it again, so that they could understand the essence of the text and think about the stories of the characters in the text. When they were studying, everyone's focus was on the two main characters, Lu Bang and Xiang Yu. Now, when Fang Yan specifically mentioned Xiang Zhuang and Fan Kuai, it immediately aroused everyone's interest in their lives. Why did Prince Dan send Jing Ku to assassinate King Qin? It must be because Jing Ku's martial arts and wisdom are outstanding. When they were studying the text, there was a character that they didn't pay much attention to. That was Jing Ku's deputy, Qin Wuyang. What did Jing Ku want to do? He wanted to assassinate the most powerful overlord at that time. It's widely acknowledged that Jing Ku was outstanding in ability and martial arts. Why was Qin Wuyang chosen to carry out the mission together with Jing Ku? Qin Wuyang is not a simple character. When he was 12 years old, he had killed someone, and no passerby dared to look him in the eye. It's not hard to imagine that he is a very cruel man. Although he is good at killing, he doesn't have extraordinary wisdom. It's written very clearly in the book. When Qin Wuyang arrived at the bottom of the steps of King Qin's grand hall with the map in his hand, his expression changed dramatically, and he was very scared. The officials of the Qin state felt very strange about this. In the end, Jing Ke's assassination failed, and he had to bear the main responsibility. Therefore, there's a saying in martial arts: train the muscles, bones, and skin externally, and train the spirit internally. If one only has a strong skin and flesh, and doesn't have the spirit in his heart, he won't be able to achieve great things. Qin Wuyang is a very typical example. Fang Yan clapped his hands, and Fang Yingying, dressed in a white tang suit, ran out with a sword in his hand. Clear music began to play. This time, it was Gu Zheng's version of Guangling San. Fang Yingying began to dance with the sword in his hand. His movements were so light and graceful that people forgot that he was a fatso. Everyone must be familiar with this kind of kung fu. That's right, this is the Tai Chi that we often talk about. Hua Xia Kung Fu has a profound connotation, and the core of its ideology is Confucianism's neutralization of qi. Just now, we were talking about why Qin Wuyang failed. It's because he didn't know how to cultivate qi. He didn't have that energy in his body, and it was too difficult for him to reach the next level. He didn't perform well on the spot, and he was nervous and scared. That's why Qin state found out about his abnormality. Martial artists need to cultivate qi, but don't scholars need to cultivate qi? We also need to cultivate qi, and what we need to cultivate is awe-inspiring righteousness. There is righteousness in the world, and everything has its shape. Below it are the rivers and mountains, and above it are the sun and stars. Humans have awe-inspiring righteousness. They don't fear the small, and even ghosts and gods can't get close to them. Teacher, how do we cultivate awe-inspiring righteousness? A student asked loudly. Is it to get closer to Huang Haoren? Fang Yan laughed and said, getting closer to Huang Haoren is also cultivating awe-inspiring righteousness. Don't we often say? What kind of person is with what kind of person? In my eyes, Huang Haoren is a student with righteousness. Wow, the eyes of the students in the 9th class were all focused on Huang Haoren's face. To be praised by teacher Fang Yan in front of more than 200 students and dozens of teachers, this guy was too lucky, right? The students in other classes who knew Huang Haoren all cast envious eyes at him. Some who didn't know Huang Haoren were also asking around who Huang Haoren was. Huang Haoren's face suddenly turned red, like a cooked crab. His eyes were red, and his body kept trembling. Huang Haoren. The students in the 9th class shouted Huang Haoren's name loudly. Huang Haoren, Huang Haoren, Huang Haoren. All the students in the audience were shouting this name that might or might not be familiar. Because of Fang Yan's words, Huang Haoren became the star hero of the audience. Huang Haoren stood up and bowed deeply to the position where Fang Yan stood. Clatter, the students applauded enthusiastically. They didn't know why, but they felt this scene was very touching. Fang Yan waved his hand, signaled everyone to be quiet, and said, just now, a student asked me how to cultivate awe-inspiring righteousness, and I think this question is very good. Reading to nourish the mind, writing to cultivate qi. Doing good and accumulating virtue can lead to awe-inspiring righteousness. For us, this is not a difficult thing. It is also something that is easily ignored by us. After Fang Yingying finished his Tai Chi sword dance, he bowed to the audience with a serious face. The students burst into laughter at the sight of his comical appearance. However, they still didn't forget to give this fatso a warm applause. The third to go on stage was Fang Haohen. He held a high stack of glasses and walked to the stage. Hua Xia's Kung Fu is rooted in Confucianism, and it also blends with Taoism's keeping quiet and softness. For example, the Tai Chi sword performance we saw just now. There is also the meditation of Buddhism, which is also the culture of Buddhism. Thus, it forms a broad and profound martial arts system. Fang Haohen stood behind Fang Yan. After bowing to the audience, he grabbed a glass and threw it on the ground. Crack. After a crisp sound, the glass was smashed into pieces. The students in the audience were puzzled. Is this guy sick? Why did he run to the rostrum and smash the glass? Is this also Huaxia's kung fu? Even Fang Yan couldn't help but look back at Fang Haohan. This silly guy, I asked you to come up to perform eating glass, not to smash glass. Fang Haohan squatted down, picked up a piece of glass from the ground and put it in his mouth, chewing it. Oh my god, he actually ate the glass into his stomach. Are you serious? It's not a fake glass, right? Can you let me touch it? It's so disgusting, punching and kicking, tripping and grappling, wielding knives and swords, jumping on roofs and running on walls. Even the dangerous people who are eating glass behind me are all part of Huaxia's kung fu. People often ask, does Huaxia's kung fu really exist? The answer is beyond doubt. Fang Yan waved his hand. Fang Haohan, who was chewing glass, threw a glass to Fang Yan reluctantly. Fang Yan took the glass, put his hands together, and wrapped it in his palms. He rubbed his hands quickly, and white smoke came out from the gaps between his fingers. When he opened his palms again, the students only saw a puddle of white powder. He gently blew on the powder, and the white powder danced in the air. It fluttered like fine snowflakes. Wow! The students were all dumbfounded. How could this work? Teacher Fang Yan couldn't be playing magic, right? Students, today's class ends here, Fang Yan said with a smile. Goodbye. Fang Yan turned around and was ready to leave. Acting cool to this extent was already quite satisfactory. There was no need for another word, no need for a wave of the hand, and no need for an extra look. At this moment, the smile on Fang Yan's face suddenly froze. His pupils widened, and he had a look of disbelief. At the entrance of the auditorium, a woman stood leaning against the door. Black leather jacket, black leather pants. Clean and neat short black hair, and a black scarf tied around her neck. She had a mocking smile on her face, but her eyes were as bright and beautiful as the stars in the sky. She walked through the long corridor, past countless tables, chairs, and students, and walked step by step towards Fang Yan. She grabbed the textbook of a student in the front row, and with a light tap of her sexy high heels on the cement floor, she leaped onto the stage and stood in front of Fang Yan. Pa! She swung the textbook and hit Fang Yan's head. Again. Pa! She swung the textbook and hit Fang Yan's head for the second time. Again. Pa! She swung the textbook and hit Fang Yan's head for the third time. Again. Chapter 2:15. Fang Yingying grabbed Fang Haohan, who wanted to go back to the stage, and said, "Stop them. If they really want to fight, can you stop them? They can send you flying with just one move." Bang! But I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I die with you? Fang Haohan asked with a confused face, holding a few unfinished glasses. Junior Marshal Uncle asked you to call back for help. Who did you call? Fang Haohan was simple and honest, but he was not an idiot. After listening to Fang Yingying's words, he immediately became suspicious of his behavior. That's true. Qinitian said softly. Know yourself and know your enemy, so that you can win 100 battles. At least, I need to know what kind of woman my opponent is. She was really handsome when she hit Mr. Fang. Was this a stage play? But what was wrong with that woman? What was wrong with the woman who whipped Fang Yan's head again and again with a textbook? Fang Haohan looked at Fang Yingying in surprise and said, "You knew that miss you would come? How could it be like this? How could there be someone who could beat Fang Yan so easily and casually? And it was a woman?" Tangxing hurriedly stopped Qinitian and said, "Qinitian, wait. His cheeks twitched, and his eyes were moist. Tears were swirling in his eyes. He tried to raise his face and not let the aggrieved tears slide down his cheeks. He really cried. Was this a movie? Yiwen Ro, this woman really went too far. Such a smile was amazing, but it also gave people a kind of indescribable fear. Fang Yan cried. That woman's behavior was too bold. That woman's posture was too handsome. That woman's smile was too charming. That woman's bitch sounded really bitchy. Impossible, Fong Haohan said. Master doesn't use a cell phone at all. He spends most of his time in a drunken stupor. How would he answer your call? Fong Yingying was angry and said, even you know this fact, how can I not know? When I called Master, it was Miss Yi who picked up. What did Miss Yi ask? How could I not answer? How dare I not answer? If I asked you, would you dare to hang up? Through the incident of Chiba Haomu getting injured and the conversation between her father and Clear Shadow, she knew exactly how powerful Fong Yen was. Qi Nitian arrived late, and the front row was occupied by students from other classes, so she randomly found a seat in the back row and sat down. When Tangxing saw Qi Nitian coming, he took the initiative to run from the front to the back to sit with her. Don't worry, said Fong Haohan. Of course I'm on your side. After all, you're my brother. He glared at Yi Ro with a face full of anger, glaring at the culprit who kicked him, who was on his way to becoming a god, into hell. Without a doubt, if someone dared to stand up and shout for them to stop at this moment, they would definitely be beaten to death. Slap. Huaxia. Sure enough, I didn't come here for nothing. Chiba Sun sighed in her heart. Don't worry. There won't be a fight. Fong Yingying said with a relaxed expression, Junior Martial Uncle wants to fight, but if he did that, wouldn't he be asking to be humiliated? Junior Martial Uncle is a smart person, he wouldn't do something that's not good for himself. In the past, she would beat him up every year. Although Fong Yen was very angry and tried to take revenge, he endured it. Fong Yingying hurriedly denied and said, I don't know, how would I know that Miss Yi would come? I don't know anything. Fong Haohan, I'm warning you, don't talk nonsense in front of Junior Martial Uncle. Otherwise, don't blame me for not calling you when there's something good in the future. If people knew that the clouds in the sky were too far away, who would chase after them endlessly? Of course it's for Master, Fong Yingying replied stubbornly. Qi Nitian thought for a moment and pursed his lips into a smile. Seeing Fong Yan's actions and expression, Fong Haohan panicked and said, this is bad, Junior Martial Uncle is probably going to fight with Miss Yi. Junior Martial Uncle cares about his reputation the most. If Miss Yi hits him in front of so many people, he will definitely feel very embarrassed. What should we do? We have to rush over to stop them. Oh, it wasn't like this, the script wasn't written like this. Fong Yan's dantian was ignited, his fists were clenched tightly. All the vertebrae in his body were pulling, making a strange cracking sound. Besides, I only asked her to pass on our situation to Master, how would I know that she would come by herself? Fong Haohan, this time you must stand on my side. If Junior Martial Uncle asks, I will say that I also don't know how Miss Yi came. You have to be a witness for me, understand? No one picked it up, no one noticed it at all. Yi Ro crossed her arms in front of her chest, looking at Fong Yen with disdain, whose anger was constantly rising. Now, I'm far away from Yan Jing, secretly running to the southernmost watching of the country. Why does Yi Ro come over to bully and beat me? Chapter 216. Mom? Fong Yingying and Fong Haohan felt like being struck by lightning. They were shocked by the way Fong Yen addressed Yi Ro. How could the powerful, violent and beautiful Miss Yi Ro become Junior Martial Uncle's mother? Yi Wenru beat her martial uncle like Ultraman beating little monsters. It had become a norm in her life. How could these two people be mother and son? Which mother would be willing to beat her son like this? Fong Yingying thought sadly. He felt sorry for Junior Martial Uncle. Fong Yingxiong and Fong Haohan knew what was going on, so they were only shocked by Fong Yan's shamelessness and guilt. They knew that they were shameless, but they did not know about Ho Yong's lazy lifestyle. But the audience who didn't know the truth suddenly burst into an uproar. Did you hear that? Mr. Fong called that woman mother. Oh my God, Mr. Fong's mother is so young and beautiful, I don't know how she takes care of herself. No way. My companions and I were all stunned. The whip queen in my heart is Mr. Fong's mother? Then I have no hope at all? I don't think so. They don't look alike at all. How could a mother beat her son like this? Is she Mr. Fong's girlfriend? They look like a good match. Tangxing felt a little regret in his heart. He turned to Qinitian and said, now their relationship is clear. The one who beat him is Mr. Fong's mother. Fortunately, you didn't go on the stage just now, or I don't know how to end it. Now you can rest assured, right? It was not easy to find an opponent who could compete with Qinitian, and it was a woman whose aura was not inferior to that of Qinitian. If she could win over Mr. Fong Yan, then the success rate of pursuing Qinitian would increase by several percentage points. Such an outstanding woman. How did she become Mr. Fong's mother? Qinitian looked at Yi Rou thoughtfully. This woman is very interesting. As for Tangxing's question, she didn't even bother to answer it. Only an idiot would believe that this woman was Fong Yan's mother. Can you understand Fong Yan's difficulties? He couldn't let the news of him being beaten up by a woman spread throughout the entire school. No, it was very likely that it would spread throughout Huacheng. He couldn't allow his image as a male idol to collapse. He couldn't allow himself to become a joke among the teachers and students. He was the Fong Yan with ideals, dignity, and face, not the Fong Yan who had been hit 3 times on the head by a woman holding a book. As a teacher, Fong Yan was too embarrassed to punish his students in this way. Yi Rou, that woman. Of course, she had done worse things, so it was not difficult for Fong Yan to accept. If it weren't for the humiliation, if it weren't for the fact that he didn't want to be beaten up by Yi Rou every year in front of the elders and juniors of the Fong and Yi families, and if it weren't for the fact that he didn't want to become a joke of the other families again, they would greet each other by asking, is Fong Yan awake today? If it weren't for these reasons, why would he run away to be a teacher? But, weren't there too many people today? Wasn't the scene a little too grand? Forced to do so, Fong Yan had to use this ultimate move. Men were bitter and tired. Men worked hard to earn money to support their families, but they were often punished to kneel. If it was the wife who hit the man, others would think that the man was really a grandson. If it was the mother who hit the man, others would think that the man was really a filial son. The reason why Fong Yan called Yi Rou mom was actually to make others misunderstand that it was a family conflict. Besides, wasn't it a natural thing for a mother to hit her son? When they secretly talked about how pitiful Mr. Fong was, they would also add, Mr. Fong is really a gentle and filial man, right? Mom? The smile on Yi Rou's face instantly became extremely stiff. Because of the anger and shyness, her ears were smeared with a layer of red. Obviously, she didn't expect that Fong Yan would fight back in this way. Fong Yan, it seems that you haven't changed a bit after not seeing you for a long time. Yi Rou stared at Fong Yan fiercely and said in a cold voice. You haven't changed a bit either. You used to hit me, and you still hit me now, Fong Yan said. After saying that, he remembered that there was a loudspeaker on his collar, so he quickly turned around and waved to the students under the stage, saying, Class dismissed, students dismissed. Go back. Go back and have a good rest. No one left. Not a single person left. Everyone sat quietly and looked at Fong Yan expectantly, waiting for the development of the story. Yes, Fong Yan didn't see it wrong. They were indeed expectantly. Their eyes were shining as if aliens were about to appear. Fong Yan felt very hurt. Usually, these guys kept saying that they liked Mr. Fong the most. Now, when Mr. Fong was in trouble, they didn't ask for their help but just wanted them to leave quietly. They couldn't even do such a small request. Some bastards even raised their mobile phones to take pictures of him. Bastards, what do you mean by taking pictures? How can you take pictures of such an embarrassing scene? If you don't go, I'll go, Fong Yan said angrily. He turned around and was about to leave. The sooner he left, the better. Staying here would only make him more embarrassed. Click, The slender high heels on Yi Ro's feet moved a step and once again blocked Fang Yan's way with her tall and exquisite body. Fang Yan raised his eyebrows and said, "Mom, I know you have some misunderstandings about me. Can we talk about these things at home? There are all my students in the audience. Won't we be a joke if we stand here and make a noise? You used to call me stinky bitch, but now you call me mom." Yi Ro sneered. "You've been a teacher for a few months. Have you become more civilized? Stinky bitch? What's stinky bitch?" Fang Yan said in a low voice. He turned off the loudspeaker so that those guys in the audience wouldn't hear their conversation. "When did I call you stinky bitch? I don't remember this kind of thing at all. A good man doesn't fight with a woman, and a good dog doesn't stand in the way. That's what you said, right? Did I say that?" Fang Yan thought about it seriously and said, "Maybe you did. We have a dog at home, and it always stands in my way. That dog is called Wenro," Yi Ro answered. "I've seen it. I've even fed it meat buns." Fang Yan was furious and said, "Who gave it this name? How could such a mighty and domineering dog have such a feminine name? I clearly named it Dongmen Shui Shue. Miss Yi, I think there are a lot of misunderstandings between us. Go back with me, and I'll explain it to you. If you're not satisfied with my explanation, you can hit me again, okay? Now you want to explain?" Yi Ro looked at Fang Yan with a sneer and said, "You ran away from home and abandoned the annual competition agreement between the Yi and Fang families, leaving me to deal with it alone. Why didn't you think of explaining at that time? Write a letter and ask someone to send it to me. Stinky bitch, an old man doesn't fight with a woman, and a good dog doesn't stand in the way. I left and never saw you again. This was written by you. I didn't miss a word, did I? Why didn't you think of explaining at that time? You scolded me as the ugliest woman in Yanjing, the leader of the Yiksha clan, the first honorary president of the International Union of Ugly Women, and I didn't need makeup to act in a horror film. You said you never worried about the World War, but worried that I couldn't get married. You raised a Pekingese and named it Yi Ro. When you were free, you threw your dirty shoes and stinky socks out and let it pick them up. You called me mom in front of so many people. Do you think I'm a fool? If I'm not stupid, why would I give you a chance to explain?" Fang Yan looked at Yi Ro shyly and said with embarrassment, "You know all these? Is there anything else you want to add?" "Actually, your summary is very complete," Fang Yan said. "Can you tell me who betrayed me? And then? I'll beat him after I'm beaten." Fang Yan's tone suddenly became murderous. "Is it Fang Yingxiong and Fang Haohan? I knew they didn't have good intentions when they came to Flower City to find me. Maybe they're the spies you sent." Yi Ro smiled and looked at Fang Yan. "Fang Yan, after so many years, you must not know a secret." "What secret?" "I like you when you're shameless." Fang Yan's heart thumped wildly as he asked in pleasant surprise, "Is what you said true?" "Of course," Yi Ro said. "In that case, I won't feel guilty when I beat you. I feel sorry for myself if I don't beat you. Can you understand this feeling?" As soon as Yi Ro finished her words, she leaped into the air and grabbed at Fang Yan's neck like a dragonfly playing with a cat or an eagle fighting a tiger. Fang Yan turned his body and quickly dodged Yi Ro's attack. Yi Ro's ability to stay in the air was very strong. When her right hand missed, she waved her left hand again. With his right foot as the center, Fang Yan fled to the periphery in 360 degrees. Yi Ro's hands attacked quickly, dazzling people's eyes. Fang Yan's body spun like a tornado, making people unable to tell the real body from the illusion. Spin. Spin again. Plum blossom steps, cross doppelganger steps, drunken crane riding the wind, Fang Yan's chest was punched by Yi Ro. His body flew backward and crashed into the wall behind the curtain. Crack. Yi Ro landed on the ground with one foot and then leaped into the air again with her high heels. She chased after Fang Yan. Her feet turned into spears and kicked at Fang Yan as fast as lightning. Bang, 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 Fang Yan's body was hit by Yi Rou's cloud-piercing kick. His body rose infinitely and hit the high dome of the auditorium. Clang, Fang Yan's head went through the glazed roof. Half of his body was outside and the other half was swaying below. There's a hole in the roof. Some students exclaimed. Chapter 217. Is this a movie? Where's the camera? I already knew that our teacher Fang would enter the entertainment industry one day. This isn't a dream, right? Pinch me. F***ck, which son of a bitch pinched me? Mr. Fang, is he still alive? If the scene of Yi Rou hitting Fang Yan's head with a book was just an appetizer, what they saw now was the real feast. It was wonderful. It was exciting. It was violent. It was fantastical. It was dangerous. And it was so beautiful. They were worried about the safety of Fang Yan. They strongly condemned the violent behavior of the woman in black in their hearts. However, they really wanted to continue watching. What would the next plot be like? Would the woman in black continue to fight and cripple Mr. Fang Huahua and make him unable to lift his head for the rest of his life? Would Fang Yan fall to the bottom of the valley and turn into a Super Saiyan, beat the woman in black violently, take off her high heels, tear her black leather coat, and hang her on the roof to bask in the moonlight? It was so exciting to think about it. Yi Rou's body landed lightly on the ground. She was not in a hurry, as if there was a breeze and white clouds around her feet. Click. The slender and sharp high heels on her feet made a crisp and sexy sound when they nailed to the ground. The scarf on her neck was still flying with the wind. Her short black hair was moving up and down, making her look free and easy and handsome. Yi Rou looked up at Fang Yan, who was hanging on the roof pretending to be a mummy, and shouted, "Fang Yan, come down." No one answered. "Do you think playing dead will work?" Yi Rou said with a sneer. Crack. Fang Yan's body fell from the roof, which made the audience scream again and again. Fang Yan stretched out his hand and combed his hair. His hairstyle, which he had specially taken care of before class and had applied a lot of hair gel, looked more supple and stylish. Just now, when he had used his head to drill through the roof, although he had pierced through the roof, his hair had also been flattened. You may never know what hairstyle means to a man. Especially a man who is not good-looking. Don't laugh, women are the same. Fang Yan tidied himself up and looked at Yiwen shyly. I didn't expect that I couldn't fool you even with this. You know how to use drunken crane riding the wind, but I'm more familiar with it than you are. Trying to show off in front of an expert, you're really seeking your own death. Just now, when Fang Yan was running in circles, he accidentally used drunken crane rides the wind. In other people's eyes, this was a mysterious footwork, which could be used to escape or kill enemies. However, this move gave Yi Rou a chance to attack. Just as Yi Rou had said, Fang Yan knew drunken crane riding the wind, but Yi Rou was better at it than him. The creator of drunken crane riding the wind was the old drunkard. Fang Yan and Yi Rou had learned this unique skill from him. Although Fang Yan had learned it and was proficient in it, he didn't know it as well as Yi Rou, who often drank and practiced with the old drunkard. Yi Rou dissected drunken crane riding the wind's 36 big steps and the 81 small steps contained in it like a butcher dissecting an ox. A genius girl naturally had her own strengths. In Yi Rou's eyes, Fang Yan's movements were full of flaws. This was also the reason why she kicked Fang Yan away with her cloud steps. Fang Yan smiled awkwardly and said, I get nervous when I see you. I'm so nervous that I forget my opponent is Yi Rou. If this is all you have, the chance of you escaping from Chiba Bing's sword is almost zero, Yi Rou said with a sneer. You'll be the first person he kills when he travels to Hua Xiao's North Star sword. Shouldn't I congratulate you? Yi Rou, don't think that I can't beat you, then come. Yi Rou waved at Fang Yan. Fang Yan's legs were staggered, and his body was slightly short. His two arms were wrapped around each other, as if he was holding a huge transparent goldfish bowl. He practiced stance before boxing. This was the Fong Plum Blossom stance. In Fong Yan's eyes, drunken crane riding the wind was better at close combat. However, because his opponent was Yi Ro, a woman who was better at that kind of footwork, he could only give it up and choose the more stable Fong Plum Blossom steps. People who practiced martial arts placed great importance on stance. If you practiced boxing without martial arts, you'd end up with nothing. The skill mentioned here was referring to the stance. In other words, stance. An unstable lower body was a big taboo, as it could create opportunities for the opponent. If you weren't careful, your head would be smashed by a punch. Therefore, Fong Yan, who had high hopes from his family when he was born, started practicing stance the moment he learned how to walk. Plum blossom steps was what he was most familiar with and understood. Years of practice and comprehension had become part of his body's footwork. Even when he was walking, he couldn't help but use the steps in plum blossom steps. Fong Yan crooked his finger at Yi Ro, indicating that she should attack this time. Yi Ro didn't stand on ceremony. With a tap of her toes, she leaped up again. Yi Ro was tall, but her movements were extremely agile. When she flipped and rolled in the air, she looked like a sparrow, which earned her the nickname Nine Heaven Sparrow. More importantly, her ability to stay in the air was very good. Some people said that the highest level of Tai Chi was to merge one's body with nature, becoming one with nature. Yi Ro entered the Tao querying realm at a young age. Her body was like the wind, the moon, the mountains, the rivers, and the seas. She could be small or big, high or low. Even now, it was still a legend in the circle. This was also the reason why Yi Wen-ro, who was at the Tao querying realm, could easily beat Fong Yan up like a dog in the annual competition between the Yi and Fong families. Under Yi Ro's pressure, Fong Yan finally entered the Tai Chi realm with the honor of being the youngest in the family. He had thought that the two of them could be evenly matched. If Fong Yan performed well, he could even break Yi Ro's winning record. To his surprise, perhaps because he was too nervous or there was something wrong with his cultivation method, the Tai Chi whirlpool that flowed like spring water suddenly stopped and disappeared. Fong Yan couldn't feel the heart of Tai Chi at all. Without the heart of Tai Chi, how could he enter the Tai Chi realm? In this case, if Fong Yan fought, he would definitely die. So, he ran away shamefully. Whoosh! Yi Ro leaped into the air and stood upright at a 90-degree angle. From top to bottom, she stepped on Fong Yan's head with the force of Mount Tai. The slender high-heeled shoe was like a sharp blade that could cut through iron like mud, stabbing fiercely and rapidly at the top of Fong Yan's head. She knew that Fong Yan's Tai Chi cultivation was not shallow. If he didn't have some strength, it would be impossible for him to enter the Tai Chi realm that all martial artists yearned for. Therefore, she didn't plan to fight with her face to face, which would waste too much time. Instead, she pressed down from above and beat him down with a violent method that was far beyond his strength. This was also her first choice when she bullied and humiliated Fong Yan countless times. Of course, sometimes when she was really annoyed, she would also play some tricks. Just the falling majesty of a woman made Fong Yan feel that the dark clouds were rolling and a heavy rain was coming. It seemed that the sky was getting lower and lower, that the starry sky was about to fall, and that a planet was about to hit the earth where they were. Boom! Fong Yan's dantian seemed to be on fire, and a strong stream of air flowed around his body. It flashed like an electric shock, and then everything went back to normal in an instant. The heart of Tai Chi was activated again, and the Tai Chi realm appeared again. Without looking up, Fong Yan could clearly see Yi Ro's attack and the distance between her pointed high-heeled shoe and his head. He didn't need to look far to see the contradictory expressions of panic and excitement of the students in the audience, and even the students breathing in uncontrollable praises. That woman is so cool, God descends to the world, she jumped so high. Fong Yan was agitated, and the Tai Chi realm almost disappeared. He hurriedly calmed himself down and ran on the plum blossom stakes, and then grabbed Yi Ro's ankle with both hands. Bang! Got it. In my region, all the territories are my territory, and all the people are my subjects. Yi Ro was no exception. Fang Yan's body sprinted even faster and spun even faster. He held one of Yi Rou's ankles with both hands, and made her run and spin with him. Fang Yan's body spun like a top, and Yi Rou's body was also spun like a top. Fang Yan's phantom turned into a plum blossom, and so did Yi Rou's body. After removing all the strength from Yi Rou's body, Fang Yan grabbed her ankle with one hand and punched her chest with the other. Boom! After a loud bang, the two of them were instantly torn apart by the strong airflow. At the critical moment, Yi Rou's fist collided with Fang Yan's. It was a heavy punch against a heavy punch, and a hard bone against a hard bone. It caused one's blood vessels to expand, and the bones in one's body to crackle. Crack! Yi Rou's feet landed on the ground. Fang Yan stared at Yi Rou in astonishment. How did you do it? Fang Yan asked. You can break my Tai Chi realm. Because of the power of the Tai Chi realm, Fang Yan was full of confidence in it. In the Tai Chi realm, he was the well-deserved king. However, when he thought he had completely neutralized Yi Rou's chi, Yi Rou was able to fight back at the critical moment when he punched at Yi Rou's chest. Is this woman an unkillable cockroach? Is there anything in the world that can't stop her? Yi Rou wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, which was forced out by the internal chi. She stared at Fang Yan with her shining eyes and asked, did the heart of Tai Chi come back to life? Fang Yan smiled proudly and said, not only did it come back to life, but also the rotation of the heart vortex became stronger. There is running water at the head of the spring, and the chi is endless. Yi Rou, do you really think you can beat me? I showed you mercy, but you are aggressive. Do you think I dare not beat you? If you were not a woman. Yi Rou squinted her eyes and smiled, saying, if not? Fang Yan thought about it seriously and realized that he really couldn't do anything to Yi Rou. Such an answer made him very depressed and discouraged. He felt that life was really meaningless. Yi Rou's eyes became fierce again and she said, if that's all, you can only survive under the sword of the Thousand Leaves army. If you want to win, Tianfang Nightly Lake. Yi Rou crooked her hand at Fang Yan and said, again. Chapter 218. It looks like this woman isn't Mr. Fang's mother. Tangqing finally realized something was wrong and said. We were deceived by Mr. Fang. Qin Etian was speechless. It's not us who were deceived by Mr. Fang, it's you idiots who were deceived by Mr. Fang, okay? I didn't believe it from the very beginning. Chiba Kaori turned to look at Qin Etian and asked in English, what happened? This woman. Why did she come and beat up Mr. Fang Yan? In front of so many students. Isn't that a very rude thing to do? Chiba Kaori didn't understand Huaxia's language and couldn't hear the conversation between Fang Yan and Yi Rou on the stage, so she didn't know that this matter was closely related to her father, Chiba Kaori. This is a free sparring session between martial artists of Huaxia, Qin Etian said. Killing a person every 10 steps, unstoppable for 1,000 miles. Fencing, chivalrous, fearless, this is the demeanor of a true martial artist. Tangqing didn't think so. It was obvious that teacher Fang had done something shameful, and the girl came to his door to retaliate by beating him up. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. This saying was true. Mr. Fang was beaten up like this, but in Qin Etian's eyes, it was still a sparring session. Was there such a hero? Of course, Tangqing wasn't stupid. He wouldn't expose Qin Etian's disguise in front of his international friends. He leaned back and spoke to Chiba Kaori with Qin Etian between them. Martial artists value freedom the most. Freedom of thought, spirit, and behavior is the only way to become a true martial arts master. It was normal for martial arts practitioners to draw their swords to lend a helping hand when they saw injustice. Fighting over a disagreement was a common occurrence. It doesn't matter to them where they fight or who the spectators are. Seeing Qin Etian glance at him, Tangqing's heart beat faster. He said, Teacher Fang Yan is an extremely rare Tai Chi master. After his deed spread, it's natural that some people came to challenge him. Because Huaxia is a country where everyone loves martial arts. Thank you, Tangxing-san, Chiba Kaori said gratefully. I understand. Because of teacher Fang Yan's reputation, there will always be people coming to challenge him, right? She thought of her father. When her father had just started his career, he had often encountered such challenges. However, ever since her father became the #1 swordsman in Japan, there were fewer and fewer challenges like this. In the end, there were no more. When the distance between you and your opponent is very close, they will be jealous of you and do everything possible to surpass you. When you leave your opponents far behind, they will only envy you and worship you. This is human nature. Does this mean that teacher Fang Yan is not strong enough? Chiba Kaori thought to herself. Then, the match between father and teacher Fang Yan. Father will not lose, right? What a powerful woman, Chiba Kaori said as she looked at Yi Ro on the stage. Is that so? Qin Tian had a bright smile on his face. Fang Yan's expression turned extremely solemn. He looked at Yi Ro, who was waving at him, and asked in a deep voice, how strong is she? Very, very strong. You know? The old drunkard knows. Has the Chiba army come to Huaxia before? 10 years ago, the old drunkard traveled to Japan to challenge the 13 sword sects on the island. He fought with the Chiba army, Yi Ro said. He lost? The old drunkard said, the Chiba army's swordplay back then wasn't mature enough, Yi Ro said. I understand, Fang Yan said with a nod. This time, I'll do my best. He crossed his legs slightly and drew a circle with the tips of his toes. He stretched out his arms and moved up and down like a bird flapping its wings. While defending, he returned to the true state of meditation. Fang Yan's mind was calm, and his 7 senses were one. He forgot about everything around him. This wasn't a student's classroom, and he wasn't standing in an auditorium with hundreds of people. He was on a flat grassland. He was on a dangerous mountain peak where he could reach out and pick up the sun and the moon. He was on the bank of the Yangtze River, and he was on a vast beach. He forgot himself. He forgot who he was, what he came for, and why he left. He didn't know how to scheme or plot. He didn't ask for the cause or effect. He and Tai Chi became one. I am Tai Chi, I mean Tai Chi this time. Fang Yan chose to take the initiative to attack. He used the Fang Plum Blossom steps and circled around Yi Ro. He walked faster and faster, and his body gradually became illusory like a phantom. The arc of his arms also moved faster and faster, like a fan with the highest horsepower. If one paid close attention, they would find that the track of Fang Yan's running was a circle, and the angle of his arms was a circle. There was no circle, no Tai Chi, and Fang Yan and Yi Ro formed the yin and yang of Tai Chi. Their feet landed silently, and the white smoke rolled. The light above their heads was still so bright. However, in front of everyone, under the eyes of countless people, Fang Yan and Yi Ro's bodies disappeared just like that. They formed a circle and were enveloped by a substance that was unknown whether it was dust or white gas. It was airtight. The audience didn't understand what had happened at all, and they also felt that the plot was getting worse and worse. Because they couldn't understand it or see it clearly. It was still as wonderful as the punches they had seen before. It was even worse than the scene where Yi Ro hit Fang Yan's head with a textbook. What on earth are they doing? Just as everyone was looking on in bewilderment, the sound of a huge explosion suddenly and violently rushed into their ears. Boom, the white smoke dispersed. Everyone felt their eardrums hurt. Fang Yan and Yi Ro finally appeared in front of everyone again. What was different was that Yi Ro stood still, while Fang Yan was pushed to the corner of the wall several meters away by the curtain. Fang Yan's mouth and nose were bleeding, and he seemed to be seriously injured. That's it? This stunt is too fake, isn't it? Is this the legendary big gas explosion? If it weren't for the weird and depressing atmosphere, some people would have jumped up and said that they should change the channel. What the hell is this? Is that all? Yi Ro looked at Fang Yan in the distance, and said, the law of integration of yin and yang in the Tai Chi state? Is that all? Fang Yan's mouth and nose were bleeding, and his heart was bleeding. He did use the law of integration of yin and yang in the Tai Chi state. I am Tai Chi, I mean Tai Chi, everything in the world is Tai Chi. His steps were circular, and so were his palm techniques. He rotated along Yi Rou, trying to use his yang pole to integrate Yi Rou's yin pole. The law of integration of yin and yang. As long as Yi Rou was integrated with him, she would be a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. It was up to Fang Yan to fight, kill, kiss, or touch her breasts. It was easy to get out of the circle, but difficult to get into the circle. It was easy to get out of the circle, but difficult to get into the circle. It was not standing still, but moving forward and retreating shoulder to shoulder. It could be as fast as a water mill, and the clouds were like dragons, wind, tigers, and elephants. It sounded profound, but in simple words, Fang Yan wanted to encircle Yi Rou with the Tai Chi circle, so that the two of them could be integrated into a circle, and then he could control and molest her. Oh, he didn't molest her. As a result, Yi Rou refused Fang Yan's integration and slapped him in the face. The yin pole was too strong, and the yang pole was too weak. Facing a tough woman like Yi Rou, Fang Yan was in so much pain that he wanted to hit his head against the wall. Only aliens can deal with her, right? Fang Yan thought. Yi Rou raised a finger to Fang Yan and said, "Congratulations, you have a chance to win, again," Fang Yan said fiercely, wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth. This time, he still took the initiative to rush toward Yi Rou, who was standing still in the center of the circle. Boom, Fang Yan flew out again. His back hit the desk on the stage that was used to hold the textbooks. Before the desk could fall, it was already broken into pieces, wooden pieces flying everywhere. 2 chances. Yi Rou stood still and raised 2 fingers to Fang Yan. Fang Yan jumped up from the ground like a carp and pounced on Yi Rou again. Boom, Fang Yan flew out again. Clang, his body slammed into the wall of the auditorium, creating a hole in the thick wall. Sand and dirt fell as if it had just experienced a slight earthquake. Fang Yan's hair was messy, and his clothes were ragged. There were numerous cuts on his face and body, which made him look miserable. He leaned against the wall and gasped for breath. The corner of his mouth was still bleeding. His nose seemed to be cut open, and the blood flowed out more rapidly. He couldn't move, and he didn't want to move. Yi Rou finally left her original position. She took a few steps back and retreated to the edge of the stage. She looked at Fang Yan and stretched out 3 fingers. Her voice sounded cold and inhuman. She said, 3 chances. But only 3 chances. Fang Yan, you are too weak. She picked up the language textbook from the ground. It was taken from a student's desk when she wanted to knock Fang Yan's head. With a light tap of her toes, she leaped off the stage. She looked like a beautiful black butterfly. She put the textbook on the boy's desk and said, "Thank you." Then, under the gaze of countless people, she held her head high and walked toward the entrance of the auditorium in her high-heeled shoes with slender and sharp heels. Cluck. Cluck. Cluck, the sound was crisp and sweet. Every sound seemed to knock on the hearts of all the people present. Hua, the door of the auditorium was opened. Bang, the door of the auditorium was closed again. Vomit, Yi Rou couldn't bear it anymore. She spat out a mouthful of blood. In the school field, in a place where no one could see. Chapter 219. Cha. 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 It was the sound of shoes stepping on the grass. It was subtle and clear, indicating that the woman walking was very relaxed. Yi Rou knew that it was a woman coming. And it was a young woman. That kind of joyful mood, the almost silent footsteps, and the faint and fresh fragrance from her body couldn't be faked by a woman in her late 30s. What kind of person is this girl who can approach me so calmly and directly after witnessing my fierceness and violence when I beat people? Yi Rou was really a little curious. He turned around abruptly and met a pair of eyes that were as black as ink. What a beautiful pair of eyes. The pupils were like the eyes of a 1,000-year-old dragon hidden in the deep sea, and the whites of the eyes were like the ice crystal that could only appear after being nourished by the polar snow mountain for tens of thousands of years. The black was so black, and the whites were so pure. There was a dragon's eye inlaid in the middle of the ice crystal. No one could resist such eyes, right? Yi Ro had been practicing martial arts since she was a child. She ate grains, drank mountain spring fruit juice, sweated to detoxify, and washed her meridians. Her body was clean and her heart was clear. Yi Ro usually boasted that she had ethereal temperament and bright eyes, but compared with the girl in front of her, she felt a little ashamed. How does she look like this? She wore a white shirt and a checkered skirt. Maybe because of the cold weather, she wore a black half-open sweater. She wore a special school uniform, but it was really hard to treat such a girl as an ordinary high school student. Is it hard? Qinitian looked at Yi Ro with a smile and asked. What do you want to say? Yi Ro stared at Qinitian coldly. What's wrong with this little girl? Is it because I beat up her teacher Fang Yan, so she followed me to avenge Fang Yan? She can kill such a delicate and lovely girl with one slap. Thank you, Qinitian said. She bowed slightly to Yi Ro and said, thank you for everything you have done for Fang Yan. You called him Fang Yan? Yi Ro sneered and said, do you hate him that much? I beat him up like a dog in front of hundreds of teachers and students, and you chased after me to express your gratitude? You are really a woman who is not good at expressing herself. With a gentle and friendly smile on his face, Qinitian said, I came all the way here just to help Fang Yan improve his strength and let him realize that he still needs to work harder. Even if I get injured, I don't care. I'm sure he'll be very grateful if he knows about this, right? Help him increase his strength? In order to motivate him to work harder? Yi Wen sneered, what a joke. What treasure do you think he is? What does his life have to do with me? I don't think you can understand my relationship with him. Beating him up every year is one of my few pleasures. I think he should be used to it by now, right? Really? Qinitian was stunned and said, I really envy the relationship between you two childhood friends. It seems that I have to upgrade your danger factor again. Yi Wen was angry and shouted, who the hell are you? It's such a simple fact. Can't you see it clearly? Qinitian laughed. I'm an admirer of Fang Yan. Yi Wen looked at Qinitian from head to toe with sharp eyes. This girl was extraordinary. When she shouted just now, she had used half of her sight. If it was an ordinary person who was not mentally strong or had a weak aura, he might have fallen to the ground under her attack. If she increased the strength of her attack, she could even hurt the opponent's internal organs, eardrums, and eyes. It was the same as the lion roar of Buddhism. The more powerful the practitioner was, the more powerful the sight he could use. Of course, if the target was also powerful, he wouldn't be troubled by the sight attack. Yin was strong and Yang was weak, or Yin was weak and Yang was strong. Everything in the world was like this. However, Qinitian, who looked so soft and gentle to Yi Wenru, had endured the attack unscathed. There was nothing out of the ordinary. Just how strong is this girl's will? Yi Wen raised her head and said with a sneer, an admirer of Fang Yan? You have bad taste. I'm happy to hear that. Qinitian squinted his eyes and smiled. Who wants to see the treasure they like being fought over by a group of people? I have nothing to say to a childish kid. Yi Wen turned around and was about to leave. Wait! Qinitian shouted. Yi Wen turned around and looked at Qinitian and said, you can't beat me. Of course. Qinitian nodded. Even 100 Qinitian can't beat you. Qinitian? Yi Ro made a mental note of this strange yet majestic name. Heaven Reliance? What kind of woman could rely on heaven? Could she rely on heaven? Wasn't she afraid of being punished by the power of law of the 9 commandments of heavenly law? Qinitian handed over a white handkerchief and said, I think you won't refuse this small gift. Yiwen stared at Chinitian for a few seconds and took the handkerchief to wipe the blood from the corner of her mouth. Then she turned around and strode away. What a proud woman, Chinitian muttered to herself as she watched Yi Ro's retreating figure. Tangxing walked out of the dark corner and said, I was worried that you would find her and fight with her. Would I do such a stupid thing? Chinitian asked. You're right. Even if we don't fight, it's possible to quarrel. Why would we quarrel? Chinitian said with a smile. Quarreling with her is fighting with her. Don't try to awaken a woman's possessive desire for an object or a man. It's a terrible thing. I'll thank her on behalf of Fang Yan. Isn't that better? Tangxing felt a chill down his spine. A woman's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the sea. What are these women thinking all day long? Mr. Fang, tonight's incident is really a bit big. A hole was made in the roof of the auditorium, and even a large part of the wall was caved in. Li Mingxiang sat in front of Fang Yan cautiously, as if he would run away at any time. Tonight was the first big class that Fang Yan gave to the freshmen. As a hardcore ally and close friend of Fang Yan, of course he had to take time to come and support him. He also thought that if Fang Yan couldn't control the situation, he would stand up for Fang Yan with his authority as the dean of teaching for many years. Wouldn't Fang Yan look at him in a different light and rely on him more? What happened in the end completely shocked him. He didn't have a chance to lend his authority to Fang Yan. Instead, he watched Fang Yan being beaten in an awe-inspiring manner. Why was being beaten in an awe-inspiring manner? Putting himself in Fang Yan's shoes, if Li Mingxiang was in that position, he would have either been sent flying or smashed into the roof and wall, creating a large hole. If that was the case, Li Mingxiang would have gone to see Guanyin Bodhisattva long ago. But Fang Yan took it head-on and was still alive and well. If that was the case, how strong must teacher Fang Yan be? Li Mingxiang was afraid that if he said something wrong, Fang Yan would suddenly reach out and slap him to death. It would be like slapping a mosquito to death. The students were also very surprised. They felt that this was really too inconceivable. I think this matter will soon spread within the school, and even the whole of Huacheng or even a wider area will be talking about it. I was worried that it would have some unnecessary impact on Mr. Fang's work and life, so I took the initiative to come out and explain that this was a project of teacher Fang Yan and a film company. Of course, I didn't explain too specifically, so that everyone could make their own associations, and then supplement and process it to convince themselves. Li Mingxiang looked at Fang Yan's cold expression, and said with a smile, I don't know if Mr. Fang is satisfied with this way of handling it. Fang Yan looked up at Li Mingxiang and said, this is real. There is no need to explain anything. Are you worried about causing panic? Let the students know that this kind of thing is normal, and they will get used to it. If we deny the existence of Hua Xia's kung fu, how can we spread it? Li Mingxiang's heart was in his throat. It's over. Fang Yan is not satisfied with the way he handled it. He won't hit me, right? He won't slap me to the wall or kick me to the roof, right? However, I still have to thank Director Li. I'm very sorry about tonight's matter. I didn't explain it to the school in advance. Sorry for troubling you. Fang Yan said apologetically. It's nothing, it's nothing. Li Mingxiang waved his hand. No students were injured, and it opened the eyes of the students. Until now, they are still very excited, and kept talking about tonight's big class. Will the next big class follow this standard? No, Fang Yan said. The next big class will only be the content before I was beaten. Then the students will be very sorry. Li Mingxiang said. Director Li, I'm sorry, I said the wrong thing. Li Mingxiang realized that he had made a fatal mistake. How could he encourage Fang Yan to be beaten again? This time he lost face in front of so many students, next time he would lose face in front of even more students. Who would want to do that? I'm afraid the students will have opinions. After all, tonight's matter will definitely be spread out. Other classes will also know the content of the class. Fang Yan's eyes glanced at Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan, who stood in the corner of the room and didn't dare to breathe. He said, Director Li's words also make sense. Next time, let's change the standard. Chapter 220. Did Mr. Fang agree? Li Mingxiang said happily. He was a great director who would put his life and death aside for the students' benefit. Because when he said that, Fang Yan could slap him to death at any time. According to the previous standard, Fang Yan would be beaten by Yi Rou again. Fang Yan's heart was boiling with anger. He felt his temper was getting better and better. Even now, Li Mingxiang was still alive and kicking in front of him, ready to dig a hole to bury him. What standard should I change to? Do I still need the girl in black to cooperate with me? The school doesn't have her contact information. Do I still need Mr. Fang to communicate with her? Fang Yan didn't want to communicate with Yi Rou. He didn't mind sending Li Mingxiang to communicate with Yi Rou. That is, if I can find her resting place. As for the expenses, the school should be able to reimburse us. If Teacher Fang has the receipt, we can also reimburse him for the appearance fee. This is for the sake of the school's students. We can't possibly let Teacher Fang pay for it himself. But next time, we must be more careful. Safety first. Don't let a situation like hanging your head from the roof or smashing your body against the wall happen again, right? It's too violent. I'm worried about the physical condition of Mr. Fang and the girl, and the students can't accept it. What I mean is, I get beaten this time, and next time I hit someone. Fang Yan interrupted Director Li Mingxiang and said seriously. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan looked at each other, and their heads were about to drill into the soil. They could feel the strong murderous look in Fang Yan's eyes when he looked at them. Oh, next time it's Mr. Fang's turn to hit that girl? I can't beat her. Fang Yan waved his hand and said. I have another candidate. I'll inform Director Li after I communicate with them. Director Li, you've worked hard for most of the night. Go back and rest. Sure. Then I won't disturb Mr. Fang's rest. Li Mingxiang quickly got up. Mr. Fang, hurry up and rest. The wound on your face. It doesn't matter. I have medicine. Fang Yan said. After Li Mingxiang left, Fang Yan coldly snorted and shouted, Fang Yingying, Fang Haohan, you two come here. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan knew that they couldn't escape, so they bowed and stood in front of Fang Yan. Fang Yingying smiled and said, Junior Marshal Uncle, you must be thirsty after talking so much tonight, right? I'll get you a glass of water. After saying that, he turned and ran towards the kitchen. Junior Marshal Uncle, you must be tired after being hit so hard tonight, right? I'll get you some water to wash your feet. Fang Haohan turned and ran towards the bathroom. You two come back. Fang Yan shouted angrily. Fang Yingying stared at Fang Haohan fiercely. This idiot, why did you mention my sore spot? They stood in front of Fang Yan again. They looked away and didn't dare to look at Fang Yan's eyes. Where is she? Fang Yan asked. Junior Marshal Uncle, Hero and I searched the whole school, but we didn't find Miss Ye's trace. I think she may have left. Fang Yingying replied in a low voice. You know Miss Ye's temper. If she doesn't want to do something, no one can force her. Fang Yan was silent. Yi Rou came suddenly and left so suddenly. After a while, he said, Tell me, what's going on? Fang Yingying didn't answer. Fang Haohan looked at Fang Yingying and didn't answer either. What? Are you stubborn? Fang Yan sneered. You heard my conversation with Director Li, right? I'll change the standard in the next class. I was hit by Yi Rou tonight. Next time, you two accompany me to the class. Plop. Fang Haohan knelt down in front of Fang Yan. He lowered his head and said with a bitter expression, Junior Marshal Uncle, it's all Fang Yingying's fault. You asked him to call for help, but he called Miss Yi. He knew Miss Yi would come, but he didn't tell us in advance. If he had told me in advance, I would have told Junior Marshal Uncle in advance and asked Junior Marshal Uncle to escape in advance, and get ready for the fight. But, he even hid it from me. Tonight on the stage, he wanted me to hide it for him. I felt guilty and felt that it was a betrayal to Junior Marshal Uncle. So, I'm going to expose Fong Yingying as a traitor. He betrayed me and Junior Marshal Uncle. He is an undercover agent that Miss Yi put beside us. Don't be afraid of a godlike opponent, but afraid of a pig-like teammate. What happened to advancing and retreating together? Didn't they say that they would live and die together? Junior Marshal Uncle hadn't tortured him yet, but Fong Haohan betrayed him? Fong Yingying's face turned pale and he quickly knelt down in front of Fong Yen. He said hurriedly, Junior Marshal Uncle, don't believe Fong Haohan's words. He's purposely framing me. He's doing this for revenge. Last time, he bought 5 peaches and I ate 1 more. He's been holding a grudge against me ever since. Junior Marshal Uncle, I did call Master, but I didn't expect Miss Yi to answer the phone. I didn't call Miss Yi on purpose. You know me. I'm fat but I'm cowardly. I don't even have the courage to talk to Miss Yi. Why would I take the initiative to call her? Fong Yingying hugged Fong Yan's leg and cried bitterly. He looked extremely miserable. Junior Marshal Uncle, please look into the details and help me wash away the shame and return my innocence. I can't let Fong Haohan, that despicable villain, succeed in his conspiracy and take advantage of me. Bang. Bang. Fong Yen kicked the 2 of them and said, it's decided. Next time, you 2 come with me to the big class. Junior Marshal Uncle. The 2 of them cried and fell to the ground. It seemed that they couldn't run away from a beating. Have you heard? Last night, during the big class, Teacher Fong Yen fought with a woman in black for 300 rounds. Are you serious? He did that kind of shameless thing in the class. What are you thinking about? I'm talking about the fight. Teacher Fong Yen was beaten by my queen. That was a movie, right? Must be a movie. Think about it. If there was no steel wire, how could a person fly so high? It should be real, right? At that time, Teacher Fong Yen was giving a lecture to everyone. How could he have time to tie the steel wire? Because when he came out, it was already done. Think about it. He stood on the stage during the class and didn't step down, right? It didn't matter if Fong Yen liked it or not. The story of Fong Huohua's fight with the Leather Queen spread throughout Rosefinch Secondary. Some students posted the photos they took with their mobile phones on the internet, which attracted a lot of netizens' clicks and comments. Most people were skeptical about this and felt that it was impossible. It was just like the video of a Tai Chi descendant gently pushing a dozen strong men in white and making them fly backward in all kinds of exaggerated postures. It was fake, malicious hype, and discrediting Hua Xia Kung Fu. Of course, there were a few people who thought it was true. These people were Rosefinch's students who had witnessed the scene. Because the scene at that time was too surprising and shocking, even if Li Mingxiang later explained that it was a collaboration between Teacher Fong Yen and the film company, they still didn't want to believe that it was so simple. However, their words were easily drowned out by the criticism and ridicule, unable to cause any ripples. Of course, there was another small group that was paying attention to this matter. After Chiba Kaoru went back, she told her father, Chiba Hajime, what had happened that night. Chiba Hajime and Fong Yen had come into contact, and he had even tried to attack Fong Yen with his claw sword. Fong Yen had dodged it. Just dodging it made Chiba Hajime look at Fong Yen in a new light. It was a habit he had developed over the years to stain his sword with blood. The fact that Fong Yen could dodge his killer move without being hurt proved that he had the strength to fight him. This was also the reason why he took the initiative to set a 1-month deadline with Fong Yen at the top of One Sword Peak. It should be noted that not everyone was qualified to be Chiba Hajime's opponent. Playing this kind of hype trick. He must be crazy to become famous, Chiba Hajime said with a sneer. Qing Yin, what do you think? Chiba Hajime asked. Qing Yin, whose whole face was hidden in the black cloak, looked at the picture on the computer and said, "He does have the strength to do so." "Yes, he does have the strength to do so," Chiba Hajime said. "If he can't face his opponent, he will never be able to determine the gap between him and his opponent. Father, if Miss Fang Yen is really as powerful as you said." Chiba Hajime pointed at Yiro in the picture and said, "Then, she beat Miss Fang Yen. I saw with my own eyes that Miss Fang Yen couldn't fight back in front of her. Doesn't this mean that the woman is more powerful? Compared to her, father, who is more powerful?" Chiba Hajime looked at Yiro's proud and pretty face in the picture and the fierce light in her eyes. He said with a smile, "The world is black and the earth is yellow, and the universe is primitive. The sun and the moon rise and fall, and the stars and constellations are arranged. The clouds bring rain, and the dew turns into frost. Gold is born in Lishui, and jade is born in Kangang. 5,000 years of culture and millions of miles of fertile land nourish them. It's not surprising that 3 dragons and 2 phoenixes are born." Father. Chiba Hajime was full of resentment. His father valued Fang Yen, Yiro, and the other Huaxia monkeys so much. "Kill the dragons and kill the phoenixes," Chiba Hajime said heroically. "I have the North Star sword, and the fate of the world is in my hands." Chapter 221. Yiro came with a bang and left with a gust of wind. She became the queen in the eyes of countless boys and the idol of countless girls in Rosefinch Secondary. Because of Yiro's arrival, Fang Yen suddenly found that black shirts and pants were popular in Rosefinch Secondary. What was more surprising was that it didn't spread among the students, but among the female teachers. It turned out that every woman dreamed of being a queen. No matter which female teacher walked to the podium in a black leather shirt, black leather pants, black high heels, and a small scarf tied around her neck, they would be cheered wildly by the students. Fang Yen wasn't affected at all. He went to class, ate, and slept as usual. Standing on the podium, Fang Yen said with a smile, "I've assigned the homework. I hope you can think about it when you go back, although I can't check whether you have thought about it or not. Well, today's class is over. Class dismissed." After saying that, Fang Yen walked toward the office with the language textbook that he rarely opened. "Miss Fang Yen." Someone shouted behind him. Fang Yen turned around and saw Chiba Kaori standing behind him in her Rosefinch uniform with a smile. He stopped and asked with a smile, "Chiba Kaori, what can I do for you?" Chiba Kaori opened her mouth, but she couldn't express her thoughts in Huaxia language. She had been in Huaxia for a while and had learned some simple pronunciation in Huaxia language, but she still couldn't speak it as fluently as other students. She couldn't understand most of the lessons taught by Fang Yen or other teachers. She could only study by herself and tutor after class. Of course, she didn't care about how many points she could get in each test. What she cared about was whether she could be influenced by the pure Huaxia culture and obtain the secret of the ultimate tea ceremony. What she really wanted to find out was why Qin Etienne could beat her in the tea ceremony competition. That was the only reason why she came to Huaxia. A pure and stubborn girl. "Teacher Fang Yen, can I speak in English?" Chiba Kaori asked Fang Yen with an apologetic smile. "Sure." Fang Yen nodded. "My English level might be the same as your Huaxia level, so I'll try to keep it simple, thank you." Chiba Kaori bowed in gratitude. "Teacher Fang Yen, I know that you are going to have a duel with my father, is that right?" Fang Yen looked at Chiba Kaori with a burning gaze as he pondered the hidden meaning behind the girl's question. Wouldn't it be better to feign ignorance? Fang Yen nodded and said, "It's your father who challenged me. I'm still considering if I should go. As you know, our schedule is rather tight. I'm Chiba Keiru's language teacher, not Chiba Keiru's swordsmanship opponent. I'm sure you'll be there, right?" Chiba Kaori asked. Fang Yen frowned and asked, "Why do you say that?" "It's just a hunch." Chiba Kaori's smile was gentle and sweet. She was humble and obedient from the bottom of her bones, making it impossible for anyone to dislike her. Maybe it's because of a man's pride, or maybe it's because of the pursuit of ultimate swordsmanship or national justice. I'm sure you'll be there. Are you looking forward to it? Fang Yan asked. There was a hint of anger in his heart. What's wrong with this girl? Your younger brother bullied my student and got beaten up by me. In the end, your family tried everything to beat me up, sending ninjas to sneak up on me and challenging me with Chiba Kaoru. Even so, I still let you study in my classroom with a big heart. Did I make you stand at the door as punishment when you can't answer a question? Did I deduct points from your language test? Although you only scored 5 points, I don't know how to deduct points without being discovered. But are you looking forward to your father beating me up? How so? Chiba Kaori shook her head lightly. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm more nervous. I don't want my father to lose to you because I know that he spent his entire life pursuing the ultimate swordsmanship. This battle is very meaningful to him. But my parents didn't give birth to me just to be beaten up, Fang Yan said with an unfriendly expression. You don't want your father to lose, so you're looking forward to me losing? Are you telling me this because you want me to let your father go? Fang Yan thought. He wished that he could proudly and boldly say, don't worry, I won't beat him to death. I'll beat him half to death, if he can beat me. Mr. Fang Yan, you've misunderstood me. Chiba Kaori looked anxious. She quickly explained in English, I don't want my father to lose, but I don't want you to lose either. You're a good teacher, a teacher that everyone respects. I can tell from the other students' eyes that they like and admire you. You're their role model. I think they don't want you to lose. Fang Yan looked at Chiba Kaori with a puzzled expression. She didn't want her father to lose, and neither did she want herself to lose. However, since it was a martial arts competition, there was bound to be a winner and a loser. Fang Yan would go all out, and Chiba Kaori wouldn't hold back either. This was a form of respect for the opponent as well as for what she had learned. I'm really conflicted. Chiba Kaori flicked her long hair and said with sincerity in her eyes, I just hope that all of you can get what you want. When the time comes, I'll be there to cheer for all of you. Fang Yan patted Chiba Kaori's shoulder. You're a good student, just like the other students in class 9. 10 feet abyss. This place isn't bad, right? Qinitian asked as he looked at the beautiful scenery before him. Clear water, blue sky, and mountains in the distance. A cool breeze blew, and the sun set. It was truly the best scenery in the world. 10 feet abyss. 10 feet is heaven and 10 feet is hell. Fang Yan said with a smile. Why did you think of having a meal here? After satisfying their material needs, people began to seek spiritual enjoyment. They sought novelty, and excitement. For example, climbing the world's highest peak, Mount Everest, which was covered in ice and snow, or crossing the Amazon, which was filled with poisonous snakes and wild beasts, or searching for gold in the desert, or exploring the South Pole, and eating the food from the East Ocean. As long as you could think of it, there was nothing they couldn't do. Fang Yan felt that today's dinner was actually an adventure. The tables and chairs were placed at the edge of the cliff. If the goblet on the table tilted a little, it could fall into the canyon and shatter into pieces. Of course, the same went for people. This was the origin of the name 10 feet abyss. A handsome waiter in a white shirt and a black waistband attentively poured red wine for the two. Qinitian picked up the glass and gently shook it, saying, Have you ever had such a feeling? When you eat a delicious dish, a thought will emerge in your heart, I must bring him here next time. When you see a beautiful scenery, your heart will think, I must bring him here next time. When you see the best and most suitable for you, your heart will be very eager to find another person to share it with. Only in this way, that dish will have value, and that scenery will have soul. Qinitian looked at Fang Yan and said, I discovered this restaurant 3 years ago, so I thought of bringing someone here. Fang Yan picked up the wine glass in front of him and gulped down the red wine in the glass. Qinitian chuckled and said, You don't need to run away, and you don't need to hide anything. I didn't ask you to marry me now, did I? I won't do such a stupid thing. Fang Yan thanked the waiter, took the wine bottle from his hand, and poured himself a glass of red wine. He was not used to being served by strangers. He would stand beside you when you were eating, he would stand beside you when you were drinking, he would stand beside you when you were choking on wine or accidentally dropping a piece of pork rib on the table, he would stand beside you when you were telling a humorous or lame joke. He would even be too embarrassed to tell dirty jokes to your female companion, otherwise, he would call you a big idiot in his heart. However, if you didn't tell a dirty joke to your female companion in such a beautiful and spectacular place, you would probably blame yourself for being too stupid for many years to come. Since that was the case, Fang Yan might as well get rid of this eyesore. Having someone pour the wine for him didn't mean that he was a cut above others, he needed someone to help him count the money. I'm not running away, nor am I hiding. I'm just thinking. Although there are a lot of negative news in the education field, such as the scumbag principal who molested primary school students and the doctoral supervisor who molested female graduate students, there is still true love in the world. My student, Fang Yan, is willing to invite me to dinner and chat with me in such a beautiful and luxurious place. As an ordinary language teacher, I feel that my job is full of sacred meaning. Do you have to say such unpleasant words to change the topic? Qinitian sipped the red wine and asked with a smile. Fang Yan looked at Qinitian in surprise and said, "You saw through me again?" Then he shook his head angrily and said, "You're too smart. I don't feel safe when I'm with you." Qinitian put down the wine glass, and his dark and shining pupils were filled with Fang Yan and the thousands of rays of light behind Fang Yan. He said, "Do men really like stupid girls? My mother is very smart, the smartest person in the world, but my father still likes her very much." "That depends on the person," Fang Yan said. "If you like someone, you won't care whether she is smart or stupid. Then, what are your criteria for choosing a partner?" Fang Yan thought seriously and said, "Big breasts and round buttocks. Don't look, you don't fit any of them. And there may not be much room for development in the future. We're really not suitable for each other." Chapter 222. For a high school student, Qinitian's figure was actually quite good. Slender and tall, she was in high spirits. She had the unique vigor of a young person, but also a maturity that shouldn't belong to her age. However, if she wanted to be the standard of big breasts and round buttocks that Fang Yan mentioned, she might not have the chance in this lifetime. Because her bones were thin and narrow, belonging to the slender type. Even if a peach became plump when it ripened, it could not become a fleshy bomb that people often talked about. This was determined by congenital constitution. Qinitian looked at Fang Yan with a natural expression, not taking Fang Yan's joke about her thin figure seriously at all. She said, "You denied my present and my future. Don't you think it's cruel to do this?" Fang Yan said helplessly, "Men tell dirty jokes to women because they want to see the cute blushing, shy look of the girl. The gentleness when she lowers her head is just like the shyness of a water lotus that can't withstand the cold wind. For women, this kind of state is the most beautiful and sexy state. You are so calm and generous, don't you think it's too disrespectful of men's labor?" A blush appeared on Qinitian's face. Her right hand gently brushed away a strand of hair hanging down to her forehead. Her eyelashes were curved, and her eyes blinked. She looked at Fang Yan shyly, and said, "Is that so? This is how a woman should behave when she hears dirty jokes." Fang Yan said with relief. "Then let's do it again." Qinitian said. "Fang Yan, tell me another dirty joke." Seeing Fang Yan's stunned look, the two looked at each other and laughed. Fang Yan shook his head with a smile and said, "Qinitian, most of the time, I really can't treat you as a child. If I'm not careful, I will treat you as an adult." Qinitian glanced at Fang Yan and said, "We sat down for less than 20 minutes, and you have insulted me twice in a row. Fortunately, you are Fang Yan, who I like, or I would have kicked you into this abyss." The 10 Feet Abyss was one of the most unique restaurants in Yangcheng. Countless rich ladies, second or third generation rich, second or third generation rich, second or third generation rich men with deep family backgrounds would choose to dine and drink here. They were all extremely low-profile young masters who frequented high-class places and never engaged in small talk with others. How romantic was it to chat and drink with the person you loved on the edge of a precipitous cliff under the afterglow of the setting sun. Then, he took a photo and sent it to his WeChat moments. He wrote, "Sunshine and you are here. This is the future I want. TSK, TSK, TSK. I'm waiting for my best friend to praise me on the surface and curse this woman behind my back." Wu Yiwei was the manager on duty at the 10 Feet Abyss restaurant today. Because the 10 Feet Abyss restaurant was only open to members, and these members were all wealthy and respectable people, the restaurant's employees were highly capable. This was especially true for a manager on duty like her. Maintaining the relationship with the VIP customers, making them pay a hefty membership fee every year, and even ordering the most expensive La Fight was a test of one's EQ and IQ. Wu Yiwei did a great job in this aspect, and this was also the best proof of her promotion from a receptionist to a manager on duty in just 3 years. All the seats were booked, and the 10 Feet Abyss restaurant's business was booming as usual. However, this didn't mean that Wu Yiwei's work for the day was over. There were still many distinguished guests who had yet to arrive, and she had to wait at the entrance to greet them. Several luxury cars stopped at the restaurant's entrance. Wu Yiwei's eyes lit up and she quickly walked to the door of the first Bentley. She took the initiative to open the back door and said with a charming smile, "Third young master, you're finally here. I've been waiting at the entrance ever since I received your call. I was worried that I wouldn't have the chance to see third young master's elegant demeanor tonight. How regretful would that be?" Zhang Lin got out of the luxury car, but he didn't hug Wu Yiwei and take advantage of her like before. Instead, he looked at her in a very gentlemanly manner and said, "I'm here to accompany a few friends for a drink and a chat. You must help me entertain them." Fear. Wu Yiwei could see a trace of fear from Zhang Lin's words and eyes. One must know that when Zhang Lin came over in the past, he would casually put his arm around her shoulder and say, "I'm here to play with a few friends. You must help me entertain them." In the past, he used the word bring. He was the leader, and those who came with him were all his subordinates. This time, he used the word accompany. He was only here to accompany them, not the real protagonist tonight. Hua Xia's writing was broad and profound, and the difference of a single word was like the difference between heaven and earth. Wu Yiwei was a graduate of ancient Chinese literature, so how could she not understand the meaning behind it? Thus, her phoenix eyes swept around and immediately recognized the real soul of this group of young masters, Lu Qingming. Lu Qingming was a member of Huaqing's Lu family and the cousin of Lu Shu, one of the 4 beauties of Huaqing. Because Lu Shu's previous reputation was too resounding, Lu Qingming seemed insignificant in comparison. Later on, he heard that Lu Shu had an accident and didn't appear in public for a long time. For some unknown reason, the Lu family pushed Lu Qingming out on several important occasions. Thus, Lu Qingming became a hot figure in Huaqing all of a sudden. Toward such a powerful figure, Wu Yiwei naturally paid attention to him. Of course, Wu Yiwei knew the rules. She wouldn't immediately greet and curry favor with Lu Qingming just because his background was deeper than Zhang Lin's. That would only make Lu Qingming look down on her, and similarly, make Zhang Lin feel disgusted. What she needed to do was to take care of Zhang Lin, and at the same time, greet Lu Qingming and let him know that she knew that he was an important figure. That was enough. Just as Wu Yiwei was thinking about this, a scene that surprised her appeared. After getting off the car, Lu Qingming walked to the Mercedes-Benz at the end of the line in an extremely natural manner. He very naturally helped to open the back door and invited a bespectacled man who looked refined yet very ordinary. Wu Yiwei's heart suddenly shrank. Lu Qingming was already the top young master in Huaqing's circle. Then, who was the man who took the initiative to open the door for him? "Weiwei, is our position ready?" Zhang Lin patted Wu Yiwei's shoulder, signaling her to come back to her senses. Third young master, everything is ready. I will accompany you. Wu Wei said with a charming smile. The group of people passed through the side road and walked towards the cliff on the left. There was a large protruding boulder, and the stone was simply surrounded by a railing. Then, there was a large white table and a few white round chairs on it. Obviously, that was the position that Zhang Lin had booked in advance. At this moment, Jiang Junling, who was walking in the back, suddenly stopped. Jiang Junling was the person that Lu Qingming paid attention to. Seeing his strange action, Lu Qingming, who was explaining the uniqueness of this restaurant, immediately shut his mouth and looked in the direction that he was looking at with a strange look in his eyes. It was a man and a woman. The man was handsome, and the woman had a noble and peerless temperament. Jiang Junling didn't speak, and Lu Qingming didn't ask either. He knew that Jiang Junling was a person who didn't like to talk much. And he had just replaced Lu Shu's position, so he didn't have a clear understanding of Jiang Junling's character and temper. The less he spoke, the less mistakes he would make. Since Jiang Junling and Lu Qingming stopped, the people behind them naturally stopped as well. Zhang Lin and Wu Wei only reacted after walking a few steps. Zhang Lin glanced at the direction that Lu Qingming was looking at and looked at Wu Wei. The scenery on the other side of that table is better. I want that table. The smile on Wu Wei's face stiffened, but it returned to normal in an instant. She hugged Zhang Lin's arm and rubbed her plump breasts against his body. Then, she gently and meticulously explained, "Third young master, since you like that table, I will definitely prepare it for you in advance next time. I will prepare it for you whenever you want it." Zhang Lin, who used to be obedient to Wu Wei, suddenly became fierce and ruthless. He ignored Wu Wei's ambiguous attack and sneered, "I want it now. Third young master, the dishes have just been served. It's really difficult for me." Wu Wei smiled obsequiously and begged. "What's the background of that man and woman?" Zhang Lin asked. "It's Miss Qin who booked the table," Wu Wei said. "Although Miss Qin rarely eats here, she has been a 3-year senior member of the 10 Feet Abyss. I have never seen that man." "Miss Qin? Which family's Miss Qin is she from?" Zhang Lin asked again. Wu Wei shook her head and said, "I only know that her surname is Qin, but I don't know which family she is from." "Third young master, you don't know her either?" "It's easier to talk if you don't know her." Zhang Lin chuckled. "I don't care how you do it. Immediately, chase them away. I want the table they're sitting at now." "Third young master, the location of Pigeon Back is actually quite good. The feng shui is excellent, and the view is wide. Look, there's a large stretch of beach right across, and the canyon is filled with smoke." Slap. Zhang Lin slapped Wu Wei's face and scolded, "Stinking whore, do you want to die? Don't you know how much money I spent on you? I gave you face in the past, but now you're not giving me face? Third young master, it's not that I don't want to help, but our 10 Feet Abyss has a rule. We can't chase away other customers or force them to give up their table for no reason. If I do that, the reputation of our 10 Feet Abyss will be ruined." Although Wu Wei was slapped, she still explained in a low voice. She knew that these young masters were temperamental. When they got close to you, it was because they were pretending to be refined. When you accidentally angered them and they bared their fangs at you, that was their true colors. In their eyes, they simply didn't treat a small character like her as a person. Zhang Lin looked at Wu Wei with a sneer and said, "You don't dare, but I do. I'll go talk to them. I think they will give me, Zhang Lin, face." Lu Qingming stood beside Jiang Junling and whispered, "Zhang Lin, the youngest son of Blue Sky Group's Zhang Qingpu, is a good dog." Chapter 223. As a good dog, it had to have the awareness to pounce and bite people for its owner. Zhang Lin was the third son of the Blue Sky Group's boss, Zhang Qingpu. The Blue Sky Group was a very famous construction company in Huacheng. 20 years ago, Zhang Qingpu was just a small labor contractor who led a dozen villagers to build houses for people. An annual income of 1,800,000 yuan was enough to satisfy him. He felt that there was no job in the world more blissful than being a labor contractor. He decided to be a contractor for the rest of his life. This was a career that could bring honor to his ancestors. Later, he had the opportunity to meet Lu Qingtian, the core figure of the Lu family. Lu Qingtian valued his ability and asked him a question: "Do you want to be a big shot?" Big shot? Zhang Qingpu hadn't figured out the difference between a big shot and a big shot before he nodded in a panic. He knew that this was a huge opportunity for him. Therefore, with the support of the Lu family's funds and connections, Zhang Qingpu's Zhang Qingpu construction team became the Blue Sky Company, and the Blue Sky Company became the current Blue Sky Group. Zhang Qingpu became a famous figure in the business world of Huacheng. He could make countless people look at him with a stomp of his foot. At the same time, he also became a dog under Lu Qingtian's tutelage. Like many other distinguished Shar-Pei dogs, they either guarded the door or bit people. They had a clear division of labor and would never overstep their boundaries. If someone gave you a bone, you would be their dog. Very fair. What was worse was that this relationship could be inherited from generation to generation. His father, Zhang Qingpu, was Lu Qingtian's dog, so Zhang Lin naturally became Lu Qingming's dog. It was a matter of course. Even Zhang Lin himself didn't have any objections. Zhang Lin wasn't the kind of man who would have his hormones skyrocket at the sight of a beautiful woman. Which man in their circle didn't go through hundreds of battles? Some of the less famous models or female students who didn't have a background were 10 times better than those celebrities who showed off in the media. He didn't have any ill feelings towards the young man and woman. He even felt that they looked like a perfect match. However, he didn't know why the noble from Yanjing was unhappy with them. Although he didn't show anything, although Lu Qingming didn't give him any instructions or promises, he was the one who arranged the dinner tonight. However, he was the organizer of this dinner tonight, so he had to stand up and pull a cloud to make some noise. At least, he had to give them a chance to speak and intervene. He was a dog, and a dog had to have its uses. Every family has its own difficulties. As a rich second generation with dreams and a bright future, do you think his life is easy? He hadn't seen the woman or heard of the man. Fortunately, the young man and woman were just two ordinary people. Zhang Lin walked to Fang Yan and said with a smile, "Perhaps this is a little sudden for you. But this is entirely for your own good. Give me your table. You have two choices. First, I'll get someone to arrange another table for you. Second." Zhang Lin pointed to the sizzling steak that had just been served on the table and said, "Pack it up and leave." Zhang. Zhang as he said, Zhang and Zhang. Zhang Fang Yan, who was about to cut his steak, looked at Qinitian with a troubled expression. "Next time, can we not go to a restaurant that costs more than 100 renminbi per person? The first time I went to Sky One, someone tried to kill me. The second time, someone wanted to beat me. Zhang. Someone wants to bully me again. I often bring Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan to the small restaurant near the school gate to eat fish with pickled cabbage. The boss is very friendly to me. Everyone who sees me would respectfully address me as Fang Laosher. No one has ever asked me to pack up my table and leave. Last night, I watched a popular idol drama. At a high-class party, the second female lead felt that the first female lead didn't deserve to wear branded clothes to such a high-class party, so she splashed the first female lead's face with the red wine in her glass. Maybe they all think I don't deserve to eat at such a place? Otherwise, why would I be hated by people everywhere I go? Qinitian didn't even want to look at Zhang Lin. He was afraid that it would affect his good mood and appetite. He swirled the wine glass in his hand and said with a smile, "You don't deserve to eat here. Who do they think they are?" Zhang Lin's eyes became vicious. He looked at Qinitian and said, "You don't know how to cherish me when I talk nicely. When I stop talking, it will be too late for you to regret it. I'll give you 1 minute. Immediately, disappear from my sight." Fang Yan patted Zhang Lin's butt and said, "All right, young man, stop messing around. Whenever there's a scene of a hooligan looking for trouble on TV, there must be an unspeakable conspiracy behind it. Do you like my female partner? Or do you like my female partner's male partner?" Zhang Lin's head turned a few times before he realized who the female partner's male partner was. His face was as ugly as pig's blood. This bastard, did he think he was gay? Zhang Lin was so angry that he laughed and said, "Looks like you don't want to give me face? I don't even know who you are. Why should I give you face?" Fang Yan asked. "Pa." A big hand was placed on Fang Yan's shoulder. A black-clothed man got Zhang Lin's order and was ready to throw this arrogant little baldy into the abyss. At least he would be scared half to death. Fang Yan looked at Zhang Lin and said, "Isn't it good for everyone to eat obediently? Why do you have to make such a mess? You provoked me for no reason, and I beat you up in anger. I'm really tired of this kind of show." Zhang Lin laughed and pointed at Fang Yan and said, "This kid is really interesting. Since you're tired of the act of beating people up, why don't you try the act of being beaten up?" Zhang Lin looked at the black-clothed man and said, "Camel, I want one of his arms." A violent sneer appeared on Camel's face. When he was about to follow the order and break one of Fang Yan's arms, a tender white hand was placed on his arm. "Break!" Camel's chi sank to his dantian and shouted angrily. Crack! The sound of bones breaking could be heard. However, it wasn't Fang Yan's arm that was broken, but Camel's arm that was about to break Fang Yan's arm. Just as Camel was about to exert force, a strong force suddenly attacked him. He couldn't resist. His arm tightened and loosened, and then he lost control of it. In the eyes of outsiders, they only saw Fang Yan reach out and pat his shoulder. Then Camel grunted and suffered a heavy blow. It was terrifying to break someone's arm so easily. Camel took a few steps back and looked at Fang Yan in horror while holding his broken arm. Zhang Lin also noticed this change and couldn't help but take 2 steps back. He stared at Fang Yan and said, "No wonder you dare to be so arrogant and despotic in the 10 feet abyss. It turns out that you have some skills. Listen to that, it's like bullying people. They came to make you move your table, threatened you, and used violence. In the end, when you fought back, they described you as arrogant and despotic. Well, since you said I'm arrogant and despotic, then I'll be arrogant and despotic for once." Fang Yan pushed the chair away and stood up. He walked toward Zhang Lin. Camel was worried that his young master would be injured. He reached out with his good arm and clenched his fist, smashing it heavily toward Fang Yan's face. Clang! His fist was still in the air when Fang Yan punched him in the eye socket. Thud thud thud, Camel's body stepped back again and again until he hit a protruding boulder. His eye socket was red and swollen, and his vision was blurred. Blood flowed out from the corner of his eye and then slid down his cheek. His appearance was horrifying to look at. Under the pain, Camel's body couldn't stand steadily. He leaned against the boulder and slowly slid down, sitting on the ground. Another slightly shorter bodyguard in black attacked Fang Yan's ribs from the side. Fang Yan turned his wrist and held his fist. With a light pull, the bodyguard in black was pulled in front of Fang Yan. Then Fang Yan punched him in the ribs under the armpit. Kacha! The sound of bones breaking sounded again. The bodyguard in black screamed and his body softly collapsed. The 2 bodyguards he brought were injured one after another. This was what Zhang Lin didn't expect. This was a dangerous person. He could see it from the fact that Fang Yan didn't even flinch when he knocked down his 2 bodyguards. He finally had a clearer and direct understanding of this seemingly gentle and handsome young man. "Want to hit me? Do you know what kind of consequences this will bring to you?" Zhang Lin stood there without moving. He was afraid. He wanted to turn around and run away. But he knew in his heart that once he did that, Lu Qingming and the others would kick him away like he was dog shit. Most of the time, you know what is right. But, you can't do that. Fang Yan smiled and didn't answer. He walked in front of Zhang Lin and stood still, waiting for him to continue. You can knock down 2 people. What about 20? What about 200? Zhang Lin thought that the threat was effective and regained some courage. I can casually mobilize hundreds of people to besiege you. At that time, it won't be something that can be settled with just one arm. This is your threat? Fang Yan asked with a smile. Fang Yan grabbed Zhang Lin's neck and lifted him up with one hand. Then, he walked step by step to the edge of the cliff and threw his body over the railing, leaving Zhang Lin's feet hanging in the air. His hair was messed up and the sound of the wind was in his ears. Below him was a 10,000 feet cliff. If he was a little careless, he would fall to his death. Zhang Lin was scared. This time, he was really scared. He wanted to open his mouth to speak, but his throat was stuck by Fang Yan, so he couldn't say anything. His face turned purple and his breathing became more and more difficult. He was about to suffocate to death. Even so, he couldn't move and didn't dare to resist. Because he was worried that if he struggled a little too much, he would fall into the bottomless abyss. Fang Yan smiled sincerely and said, You see, this is a threat. You can't even be a hoodlum, what else can you be? Chapter 224. You can't even be a hooligan, what else can you be? Was there a more vicious humiliation than this? Although Zhang Lin was very afraid of death, in that short period of 0.01 seconds, he actually had such a thought, let go and let me die. For him, this feeling was worse than death. Zhang Lin's entire body fell outside the railing, hanging on the cliff. As long as Fang Yan loosened his grip, or accidentally slipped, what awaited Zhang Lin would be smashed into pieces. The wind blew on his buttocks, and he was about to pee his pants. This scene was too thrilling, and everyone was dumbstruck. Wu Yiwei was scared out of her wits. She quickly ran over and reached out to grab Fang Yan's arm, shouting, let go, you'll die if you do this. Security, come quickly. Zhang Lin had slapped her in the face, but she had also earned a lot of commission from the drinks. If Zhang Lin died in front of her, she would also have to bear the responsibility. Pa! Fang Yan reached out and threw Zhang Lin back to the ground. He didn't plan to kill Zhang Lin, he wasn't that stupid. Zhang Lin clutched his throat and coughed violently. His face was purple, and he couldn't say a word. Wu Yiwei helped him up from the ground and asked anxiously, Third young master, how are you? Are you okay? Do you need to call a doctor? Zhang Lin's body was limp, and all his strength was drained by Fang Yan. I don't have to give up my seat, right? Fang Yan looked at Zhang Lin and asked. Zhang Lin didn't answer. He also didn't need to answer. He had fulfilled his duty, and the rest could be handed over to others. Don't bully others just because you have some stinky money. When Fang Yan walked in front of Zhang Lin, he kicked his knee. Do you think I don't have money? When Fang Yan finished his practice and returned to his seat, Qinitian had already gently and carefully helped him cut the steak into small pieces. Eat it while it's hot. Qinitian said with a sweet smile, as if she was not worried that Fang Yan would be defeated in the battle just now. I just tasted it. It's not fishy or overripe. The taste is just right. Fang Yan forked a piece of beef into his mouth and chewed, saying, it's really not bad. Of course. This dish is their signature dish. How could the place I picked be bad? Qinitian said proudly. Fang Yan swallowed the beef and said, let's eat quickly. After eating, he ran away. This little bastard isn't trying to hit on you or me. There's no reason for him to bully us for no reason. There's someone behind him. I don't know why, and I don't want to know. I'll go back after dinner. Pretend that nothing happened today. What a generous man. Qinitian savored the beef in his mouth and said, I'm afraid you won't get what you want. Can't I not pursue the matter when they bully me? But, they didn't succeed, Qinitian said. To them, you're bullying them if you don't let them bully you. Fang Yen felt that these young masters were too much of a bully. Everything that happened on the cliff was seen by a group of people not far away. Jiang Junling turned to look at a skinny middle-aged man behind him and asked, "Mr. Bao, are you confused?" Mr. Bao shook his head and said, "I know when to advance and when to retreat. I showed mercy. I'm not confused." "Then go help him," Jiang Junling said. Mr. Bao did not say a word. He lifted his small feet wrapped in black cloth shoes and walked in the direction of Fang Yen. Mr. Bao stood in front of Fang Yen and looked at him with a gentle expression. Fang Yen also noticed Mr. Bao and his expression became serious. Fang Yen pointed at Zhang Lin on the ground and said, "You're together?" Mr. Bao shook his head. Who was Zhang Lin to be with them? "So, you're like him, bullying me because you don't like me?" Fang Yen slowly moved to Qin Tian's side and used his body to block in front of her. It was romantic to eat in the Zhang abyss, but it was dangerous to fight. If he was not careful, he could easily push someone off a cliff and fall to his death. Fang Yen was afraid that Qin Tian would be implicated if he got into a fight. "Bully?" Mr. Bao was stunned. He laughed, and the thin layer of skin on his face piled up together, making him look like a crumpled soup bun. In a martial arts competition, the winner is the hero and the loser is the bandit. How is this bullying? Martial arts competition? That's exactly what I'm here for. Fang Yen waved his hand and said, "I'm sorry, I'm not competing. As you can see, my student has already cut the beef for me. I'll be old if I don't eat it now." "Half an hour is enough," Mr. Bao said confidently. He was confident that he could finish the battle in half an hour, or rather, finish off Fang Yen. Fang Yen looked at Mr. Bao thoughtfully and asked, "Must you compete with me?" "That's why," Mr. Bao repeated. Fang Yen frowned and asked, "Why?" "To defeat you," Mr. Bao said proudly. He was short, but he gave off an arrogant aura that looked down on the heavens. "I'm not obliged to fulfill your wish," Fang Yen said. "Why should I let you beat me just because you want to? It's not up to you." Before he finished his sentence, Mr. Bao clawed at Fang Yen with one hand. His figure flickered and the claw turned into thousands of illusions. Body clone technique. Xingyi Fist's eagle claw became shadowless claw due to Mr. Bao's speed. Xingyi Fist was derived from heart and mind fist. Shape and mind followed the heart and could be controlled as one pleased. Ever-changing and controlled by the heart. A single leaf knows the autumn, and a single clue reveals the general trend. With just one claw, Fang Yen already knew that Mr. Bao was a rare opponent. Putting everything else aside, his palm-will fist had already reached a level where he could do as he pleased. "You're going too far." Fang Yen was furious. It was just a meal. Was there a need to provoke him again and again? Fang Yen clenched his fist and punched through the illusions towards Mr. Bao's wrist. Bang! Like a fierce tiger, the illusion was destroyed. Shape and mind followed the heart. Just as his wrist was about to be hit by Fang Yan's fist, the eagle claw turned into a tiger fist and charged straight at Fang Yan's fist. Fist against fist, flesh against flesh. The two men's fists collided head-on. Silence. A deathly silence. Boom, the sound of something exploding could be heard and a strong cyclone was sent flying back. Pa pa pa, Mr. Bao took 3 steps back. Every step was as strenuous as smashing a stone. Chi, the round-mouthed cloth shoes and the stones on the ground created a violent friction. When he stopped, the soles of the cloth shoes had already disappeared. His inner force was channeled and the cloth shoes could not withstand the force. The sole of the cloth shoes was burnt to ashes. Fang Yen sat on the spot without moving, but the wooden chair he was sitting on was destroyed. The 4 legs of the chair broke and collapsed. Pa! The bare cover of the chair fell to the ground. Fang Yen could no longer maintain his sitting posture. He stood up straight and glared at Mr. Bao. "I used white hand to repel the tiger and you used evil tiger to dig out the heart?" Fang Yen said coldly. White hand was also known as snatching hand. It was a hand-to-hand combat technique. Repelling the tiger was to let the opponent know when to retreat. It was not a killing move that could injure or kill. However, Mr. Bao used Evil Tiger to dig out the heart. With one hand, he attacked Fang Yan's fist to lure him in while his other hand went for Fang Yan's heart. If not for Fang Yan's Tai Chi's stickiness, Mr. Bao's tiger claw would have pierced through Fang Yan's chest and dug out Fang Yan's heart. Mr. Bao smiled without saying a word. Deep down, he was shocked. Everything he had learned in Xing Yi was to play the chicken like a chicken and the tiger like a tiger. Bend down like a chicken and stand up like a tiger. Dispel the qi and dig out the heart. This series of killer moves had always been successful. Countless experts and generals had fallen under his hands. He did not expect Fang Yen to resolve it so easily and force him to take 3 steps back. The fist was afraid of the young man. The young man's inner force was as powerful as the Yangtze River. Mr. Bao had cultivated qi all his life, but he could not shake the young man. You want to kill me? Fang Yen asked. Of course, I want to kill you, Mr. Bao said. Fang Yan's face darkened. If it was just a sparring match, he could use all his strength without using his killing intent. But if it was to kill someone, then Fang Yen would not sit still. He was afraid of death, so he hated those who wanted to take his life. Since when did Dragon Master Bao Shi become someone else's watchdog? Fang Yen stared at Mr. Bao and asked. Bao Shi raised his eyebrows and asked, You know me? There are 2 masters in Xing Yi, Southern Dragon and Northern Phoenix. To be able to practice form and will martial arts to this level, I'm afraid only Dragon Master Bao Shi can do it, Fang Yen said sarcastically. It must be very embarrassing for a grandmaster to be seen through and become someone's dog, right? Bao Shi chuckled and said, I've found another reason to kill you. When Fang Yen and Mr. Bao were sparring, a man in black came behind Qinitian and reached out to grab her shoulder. Qinitian, who was cutting the steak with a knife, suddenly turned around and stabbed the knife into the back of the man's furry hand. Crack, the sharp blade went through the man's hand. The man staggered back and screamed in pain. Blood flowed out and a strong smell of blood filled the air. Everyone stared at this scene with their eyes wide open, looking at the girl who was smiling sweetly as she lifted the hem of her red dress and bowed slightly to the surrounding audience. Qinitian sat down again and shouted, Waiter, another 12 knives and forks. Chapter 225. No one dared to give Qinitian 12 sets of knives and forks. When there was only 1 set of knives and forks, she used that knife to pierce the palm of a burly man. If he gave her 12 sets of knives and forks. Do you think other people are stupid? Who would be willing to let you play a piercing game with their palm? The knife was still inserted into the back of his hand, and the blade came out of his palm. The blood flowed rapidly, and soon, the black-clothed man's white shirt was dyed red. He covered his palm and howled. His body was trembling in pain, and his eyes were filled with hatred and fear when he looked at Qinitian. He swore on his character and his first love that this girl was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. However, why was she so fierce and cruel when she attacked? Wu Yiwei was also stunned. What was going on tonight? What kind of monsters were they? When Qinitian came, she was responsible for receiving him. When she saw Qinitian, she was stunned. At that time, she secretly compared the 2 of them in all aspects. Whether it was appearance, temperament, or aura, the other party was several streets ahead of her. Fortunately, her chest was full, and it made her regain a little confidence as a woman. 3 taels of meat on the chest was worth 100,000 gold. This was very reasonable. In her eyes, this girl, who was so beautiful and charming, had pierced through someone's palm with a knife, and then smiled indifferently and shouted for another 12 knives and forks to be served. Beheading someone while talking and laughing, this was probably the kind of person who could do that. Jiang Junling slightly frowned. He turned to look at Lu Qingming and asked, "Who is that idiot's man?" Lu Qingming didn't know why Jiang Junling was angry, so he quickly explained, "He might be Zhang Lin's man. I saw him get out of Zhang Lin's car. He saw that Zhang Lin was being bullied and insulted by that guy, so he wanted to catch that girl to threaten him." That girl. Seeing Jiang Junling's gentle eyes looking at the girl, Lu Qingming chuckled and said, "Quite a character." "Just character?" Jiang Junling had a meaningful smile on his face. "If that's the case, can she live up to Qinitian's words?" "Qinitian?" Lu Qingming's expression froze. Qinitian of the Qin family? Perhaps his severely injured and disfigured brother, Lu Shu, knew more, but this didn't prevent Lu Qingming from knowing some secrets of that level from his own network and circle of friends. The son should be like Jiang Junling, and the adopted daughter must be like Qinitian. The comment of the Tao addict, song transplanting seedlings, who was known as the #1 physiognomist since ancient and modern times, had pushed the two of them to the front of the stage, attracting countless eyes and attacks of jealousy. However, this also proved that the two of them were indeed first-rate young talents. Jiang Junling is the Jiang Junling in front of me, and Qinitian is the beautiful woman with a calm posture and a smile on her face at the edge of the cliff? Wasn't she still a child? Could it be that the rumors were wrong? Qinitian of the Qin family, Jiang Junling said. What? Do you regret it? If possible, who would want to provoke the Qin family for no reason? Lu Qingming thought in his heart. However, he couldn't say such words, at least not in front of the man in front of him. He looked at Jiang Junling firmly and said, "Young master, do you want me to have a try?" He was willing to use his actions to prove that he was firmly on the side of Jiang Junling. This was something that was destined a long time ago. Changing one's ways was like betrayal. For these big families, betrayal was a very shameful thing. They would crush it into mud by hook or by crook. No need. Jiang Junling said in a flat voice. She is my friend. Lu Qingming didn't understand. Since they were friends, why did he send his ace bodyguard, Dragon Master Bao Shi, to challenge them? Dragon Master Bao Shi, the king of Xingyi, was a master of internal martial arts. He was known as the most loyal person after Yu Wumu, the founder of Xingyi martial arts. The style of Xingyi martial arts was to fight hard, almost like lightning and thunder. Bao Shi was a violent person, and countless masters had died in his hands. Moreover, the losers were either dead or injured, and few people could pick up their skills again. A few years ago, he fought with the nation master Li Zonghao in Yanjing and disappeared miraculously. Everyone thought that Bao Shi was defeated by Li Zonghao and had no face to come out again. Unexpectedly, Lu Qingming saw his real body in watching this time. And he lost his identity as a grandmaster of Xingyi martial arts and became a bodyguard of Jiang Junling under the alias Mr. Bao. As if he had seen through Lu Qingming's thoughts, Jiang Junling looked at Fang Yan sharply and said, "He is not." He was not a friend, so he fought with him. Was this the logic of Jiang Junling's behavior? Jiang Junling was arrogant, and Bao Shi was even more arrogant. Because of Fang Yan's question that a grandmaster became a dog for others, this became one of the reasons why Bao Shi wanted to kill Fang Yan. Bao Shi looked at Fang Yan coldly and said, "You are so young, but your cultivation is extraordinary. Today, let me have a good taste of your supernatural power." A young hero is bound to be praised by others. What I like to do most is to kill miracles. He clenched his fists, and his knuckles cracked. His figure turned into a blur, and the entire spine of his body began to make crackling noises. His eyes were wide open, and his mouth was tightly closed. The two sides of his cheeks were originally dry, but at this moment, they suddenly bulged, like a frog holding its breath. The wrinkles on his forehead were faintly discernible. Two horizontal lines and one vertical line formed a clear, dry character. However, with Fang Yan's eyesight and knowledge, he knew that this character was not the dry character, but the king character. The king character on the tiger's forehead. Fang Yen was shocked. Someone had mastered the supreme realm of Xing Yi Quan, the battle of dragons and tigers. His body was like a dragon, and his face was like a tiger. If the last horizontal line was added, then Bao Shi would have the power of a tiger and a dragon. He could rise like the wind, fall like an arrow, split mountains and cut stones, and cut off the heads of thousands of soldiers and horses. A master. This was a real master. Fang Yen felt the danger. It was as if every inch of his skin, every piece of flesh, and every hair on his body was coveted, and he could face a fatal blow at any time. Fang Yen touched the ground with the tip of his left foot, and gently lifted his right foot to draw a circle in the air. Whoosh! Bao Shi's figure disappeared on the spot, and like a miracle, he appeared in front of Fang Yen at the same time. A dragon soared in the 9 heavens, and a leap of 100,000 miles. Bao Shi's speed was so fast that it gave people a false impression. His upper body rushed to the front of Fang Yen, but his legs were still standing in the original position. His body was split in half by time and space. Roar! He opened his mouth and roared like a tiger. Boom! He punched at Fang Yan's head. It was a straightforward attack. There was no feint, and no disguise. The punch was fierce and powerful. He fought with his life, and cheered with his chi. He was going to use the tough style of Xingyi boxing to attack Fang Yen and take his life. Before the punch arrived, it was already powerful enough to hurt. Fang Yan's face was burning with pain, as if someone was slapping him hard in the face. Just the wind of the punch could hurt people. If the punch hit, there was no doubt that Fang Yan's head would be smashed like a watermelon being hit by a hammer. Fang Yen stood on one foot. When Bao Shi's heavy punch came, his toes were shaking, as if he could not stand steadily. Like a willow catkin in the wind, like snow in the wind, like a circle. He handed his body over to Bao Shi. Swoosh! The heavy punch passed through the side of Fang Yan's face, but Bao Shi's body fiercely hit Fang Yan's body. Top martial artists could hurt people with flying flowers and leaves, let alone his body that had been tempered 100 times. Fang Yan's feet swayed again, and his body rotated with it. The foot that was raised in the air kept drawing circles. The body was the boat, and the feet were like oars that kept correcting the direction of the boat in the sea. No matter how strong he was, the breeze caressed the hill. No matter how strong he was, the bright moon shone on the river. This was the general principle of Tai Chi, the supreme essence of using soft to defeat hard. Soft Tai Chi, the power of 4 tails of gold. Whoosh! Bao Shi's short body passed through Fang Yan's side, and the two brushed past each other. Roar! He opened his mouth and roared again. Before he could turn around, he had already used his elbow to hit Fang Yan's heart, head, face, and other vital parts. Deflate his chi and borrow his strength. Fang Yen did not dodge this time. His palm was like a knife, cutting toward Bao Shi's back as fast as a gust of wind. You've been tricked, Bao Shi shouted coldly, and the killing intent in his eyes skyrocketed. His arms suddenly stretched out and blasted toward Fang Yan's chest at a speed many times faster than before. This was the real speed of a divine dragon, and this was the real power of the Tiger King. The roar of a tiger and the roar of a dragon. It possessed unfathomable speed and unparalleled strength. It could destroy the heavens and extinguish the earth, and it was extremely lethal. Fang Yan's feet landed on the ground, and his body took a step forward. Smack! He slapped Bao Shi's face and pressed down on Bao Shi's head, who was rushing toward him. Bao Shi's violent body stopped instantly, and Bao Shi's fist couldn't reach him no matter how hard he tried. Because he was short, his arms were naturally not as slender as Fang Yan's arms. Fang Yen could press down on his face, but he couldn't dig out Fang Yan's heart. It was like a giant pressing down on a dwarf's head, and the dwarf's punches and kicks couldn't touch the giant's skin. Bao Shi punched, and Fang Yan punched him in the arm. Bao Shi kicked, and Fang Yan kicked him in the joint. As soon as he made a move, Fang Yan blocked all his ways out. Thus, a hilarious scene unfolded before everyone's eyes. The Xingyi master Bao Shi's face was squeezed into a bun by Fang Yan for a while, and then his face was squeezed into a dumpling by Fang Yan. Then, he was twisted into Garfield, Mickey Mouse, and Little Frog by Fang Yan. Fang Yan's fingers kept flicking as he looked at Bao Shi and asked, "Do your parents know that you're so cute?" Chapter 226. When the emperor was angry, corpses would be everywhere. When a grandmaster was angry, he would howl like a wolf and cry like a ghost. Bao Shi was really annoyed by Fang Yan's words. You can say that I have the demeanor of an expert, you can say that I have an extraordinary temperament, you can say that I am heroic, elegant, romantic, and beautiful like a fairy, you can say that I have a more masculine personality, and I can barely accept it. But what do you mean by saying that I am cute? I am a grandmaster, the king of Xingyi. Isn't it insulting to say that I am cute? Roar, with a roar, Bao Shi's head slammed toward Fang Yan. He clenched his fists and punched at Fang Yan's arm that was pressing his head at the same time. Whoosh! Fang Yan stopped and attacked again. His arm was still pressed on Bao Shi's head, so that Bao Shi could not hit him. However, Bao Shi's fists instantly missed. Again. Again missed. Again. Again missed. No matter how Bao Shi attacked, Fang Yan was able to dodge in advance, and his big hand pressed on Bao Shi's face like a shadow. It was as if Bao Shi had been sucked in. If I don't let go of the Tai Chi sticking formula, no one can save me. Bao Shi looked up at Fang Yan, his face purple and his eyes wide open. What kind of hero is that? Do you dare to exchange 3 punches with me fair and square? What kind of hero is he to be evasive? Fang Yan thought about it seriously. Heroes have always been evasive when they fought with me. Slap. Fang Yan slapped Bao Shi in the face. Slap. Fang Yan slapped Bao Shi in the face again. Slap. Fang Yan slapped Bao Shi in the face for the 3rd time. After the 3 slaps, Fang Yan took 2 steps back, looked at Bao Shi and said, "I dare to slap you 3 times. Tai Chi is about conquering strength with softness. What do you mean by asking me to punch you? You wouldn't have agreed if I had asked you to compete with me in tongue twisters when you were beating people up just now, right?" What Fang Yan hated the most was this kind of self-righteous idiot. Everything had to be done according to his ideas. If anything went wrong, it would prove that he was a shameless scoundrel. Damn it. Bao Shi was about to go crazy. All the humiliation he had suffered in the first half of his life couldn't compare to the humiliation he had received today. His body began to run like a wild horse. Tiger, he threw a punch at Fang Yan's chest. Fang Yan stood still and punched out at the same time. Pa! Bao Shi's body flew backward, knocking down countless stone tables and wooden chairs. The sound of cracking was endless. Wherever Bao Shi went, it was as if he had experienced a violent typhoon. A smooth path appeared and the tables and chairs were completely cleared by Bao Shi's body. Bao Shi got up and charged at Fang Yan again, throwing another powerful punch. Fang Yan took a step forward and punched again. Their fists collided again. Pa! Bao Shi was punched away by Fang Yan again. His body hit the railing of the restaurant and the whole restaurant began to shake. Exclamations and screams came one after another. The guests of the restaurant who had come to watch the fun couldn't care less about etiquette when their lives were threatened. They covered their heads and ran outside. Bao Shi got up again. His clothes were ragged, like a beggar on a bridge. Blood spilled from the corner of his mouth, but he was seriously injured but not dead. Bao Shi took out a handkerchief from his pocket and carefully wiped the blood stains on the corner of his mouth. Then he rolled up the blood-stained handkerchief and carefully put it in his pocket. Bao Shi looked at Fang Yan with blood-red eyes and said, "We have fought 116 times, won 110 times, lost 3 times and drew 3 times. You are the first person to make me bleed." Fang Yan looked at him sarcastically and said, "Even if I am the first man to make you bleed, do you want me to be responsible for you? You have a sharp tongue. Then tell me, do you feel a little uncomfortable after hearing these words?" "Uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable," Bao Shi said very frankly. Fang Yan's words were not malicious, but every word made Bao Shi feel suffocated. The suffocation increased exponentially, and finally the quantitative change produced a qualitative change, making him feel like his body was about to explode. Bao Shi knew that he had lost. Originally, he came up to disturb Bao Shi's mind, but he didn't expect that his mind would be disturbed first. "So, please be sure to take another punch from me." Fang Yan's eyes were slightly cold as he stood there and waited quietly. Bao Shi let out a deep breath and slowly raised his hands. He carefully and reluctantly clenched them into fists as if he was holding a handful of glass shards in his palms. The skin on the back of Bao Shi's hands became fiery red as if they were about to burn. Because the internal energy was too turbulent and leaked out too fast, it caused the skin to change color. Bao Shi had been practicing hard for decades, so his internal energy was indeed majestic and vigorous. "Ha!" Bao Shi roared and rushed toward Fang Yan again. Fang Yan moved. His body was like a divine dragon, and he rushed toward Bao Shi, with one hand clenched into a fist. Whoosh! The fists collided, but there was no sound of explosion. Bao Shi's punch with all his strength seemed to have hit cotton, which made him feel suffocated. Right at this moment, an irresistible force surged forth, colliding with his fist before he could use up his old strength and generate a new one. Boom! Bao Shi's body flew out for the 3rd time. Fang Yan pointed his toes and quickly chased after him. Clang! Bao Shi's back hit the decorative rockery in the corner of the restaurant. The rockery trembled, and stones of all sizes fell off. His body hit the rockery and made a chevron-shaped dent, and his body was tightly attached to the dent. From a distance, it looked like a carved, big character. Pa! Fang Yan landed on his feet and reached out to grab Bao Shi's throat. "You win." Bao Shi vomited a mouthful of blood and looked at Fang Yan. Fang Yan exerted a little force with his right hand, making it more difficult for Bao Shi to speak. "I'm convinced," Bao Shi said, resigned to his fate. "Let's do it." Behind Jiang Junling, a man wearing sunglasses and holding a bamboo stick was about to rush to save Bao Shi. "Let him kill him." Jiang Junling felt the movement behind him and said lightly. Everyone was shocked. Lu Qingming tried not to look at Jiang Junling's eyes, and his eyes never moved away from Fang Yan. Fang Yan's anger rose wildly, and his hand that was grabbing Bao Shi's throat trembled slightly. He was very angry. He wanted to kill. He wanted to erase all these despicable and shameless people from the earth. Everyone was waiting for him to forcefully twist Bao Shi's head. The atmosphere was strange, and the entire restaurant was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Fang Yan could hear his rapid heartbeat, and he could see his blood that was about to boil. His heart was about to jump out of his chest, and his blood was about to burst out of his blood vessels. All of a sudden, Fang Yan grinned. He let go of Bao Shi's throat, patted the dust off Bao Shi, and said with a smile, "Teacher Bao, are you okay?" Plop. Bao Shi's eyes darkened, and he couldn't hold on any longer. His body softly collapsed to the ground. Some people were relieved, and some people sighed with regret. Jiang Junling pulled a chair and sat opposite Qin Yitian. He looked at her with gentle eyes and said, 3 years ago, we found this 10-feet abyss together. It was my first time here, and it was your first time here. Qinitian played with the fork in her hand and didn't speak. It was your birthday that day, and we opened a bottle of red wine. You were underage, so you drank a glass. I drank the remaining half of the bottle. Qinitian still didn't speak, like a playful child playing with a toy in his hand. The wine tasted good, and we were in a good mood. You said you would bring a special person. I've been waiting. I'm really curious, wondering what kind of person you would bring. 3 years have passed, and your birthday has come again. I've also seen the person you brought. Jiang Junling waved his hand, and Lu Qingming immediately took a goblet from the next table for him. Jiang Junling poured himself a glass of red wine from the bottle, and then raised it to Qinitian, saying, "Happy birthday." Pfft. Qinitian chuckled. Her smile was bright, but not brilliant, like the red and white nameless flowers all over the 10-feet mountain. She looked up at Jiang Junling and said, "That idiot who came to ask me to give up my seat is your man? My man isn't that stupid. The guy who was sent flying by Fang Yan is your man? It's a bit embarrassing to say. My expectations of him were too high. Jiang Junling, do you think this is meaningful?" Qinitian looked at Jiang Junling and asked. Jiang Junling tapped his fingers on the table and said, "This is the restaurant we came to together, yes. Although I didn't say it frankly, I came to Huaqing to celebrate your birthday. This is what everyone wants to see. The people of Yanjing are all watching, many people are watching. I understand. Now you can understand my feelings, right?" Jiang Junling had a matter-of-fact expression, and said in a gentle voice, "Sitting in the restaurant we found together and celebrating your birthday with another man, this kind of feeling is really uncomfortable. So, you've ruined all my efforts and emotions today?" Jiang Junling flicked the glass in his hand with his finger, and said, "I'm raising my glass to wish you a happy birthday." Qinitian said with a smile, and looked at Jiang Junling without saying anything. 3. Jiang Junling said. 2. Jiang Junling said aloud. "What are you counting?" Qinitian asked. As she spoke, she had already raised her fork and was going to stab Jiang Junling's eyes. Clang! Jiang Junling raised his arm, and just happened to use the glass in his hand to block Qinitian's stabbing fork. Jiang Junling looked at Qinitian, and said, "I'm counting the time you stab me. Sometimes I really hope I'm wrong, then I won't be so sad." Chapter 227. The fork was pressed against the glass, unable to move an inch. Presumably, the stingy Jiang Junling didn't want to be stabbed, so Qinitian didn't force him. He tapped the glass in Jiang Junling's hand with the sharp teeth of the fork, like a child playing house, and said, "You really know me. Many people say that. We are bosom friends," Jiang Junling said. "If this counts as bosom friends, then there are so many bosom friends in the world for you. Isn't it tiring to use mathematics and logical reasoning to guess people's minds? What about you?" Jiang Junling looked at Qinitian calmly. Words and deeds. Manners? If a person wants to understand another person, he has to look at the person's appearance, listen to the person's words, and observe the person's behavior. A decent appearance doesn't mean a decent person, but a fair way of doing things must be full of justice. Qinitian's little face was full of smiles, and he said, "You praised Fang Yan in front of me, which made me very happy. Jiang Junling, in fact, you are very good at making girls happy." "Yes, that's it. Praise the person she likes the most and the thing she cares about the most." Jiang Junling acted as if he didn't hear Qinitian's nonsense, and he said, "The so-called mind reading is nothing more than thinking and deducing from these aspects to get the answer you want. The difference is that my method is more advanced than yours. Why try to understand everyone? That's the only way to cater to their interests," Jiang Junling said with a smile. "Or in other words, to kill their weakness. That's why there are Xingyi masters like Bao Shi are working for you. The sparring is over, and the dust has settled. Mentioning him at this time is always something that will spoil my appetite," Jiang Junling said. I supported him, but I couldn't even do such a simple thing well. Incompetence is also a kind of betrayal. This knife was stabbed in the most vital place. You let him kill Fang Yan? You can also be killed, Jiang Junling said. I focus on the result, and I don't care how the process changes. Whether he kills Fang Yan or Fang Yan kills him, it makes no difference to me. At the very least, the guy who replaced me to sit in front of you and drink red wine with you on your birthday will completely disappear from my sight. When the world is peaceful, I won't be sulking in my heart like I am now and pretend that nothing has happened. Qinitian, you know me. You know how much I hate to hide. The world is too hypocritical. Wouldn't it be better to have more truth? Jiang Junling, you are frightening, Qinitian said. Selfish, indifferent and narrow-minded, treating human life like grass. You don't care for flowers and plants, you have no sunshine in your heart. Being with someone like you is like living in a dark and damp room filled with cockroaches and mold. It gives me goosebumps all over my body and makes me want to run away every second. Qinitian looked at the General Ling with sincerity in her eyes. We've known each other for so many years. I'd advise you to change this habit of yours. Think about it, if you were to marry someone else, that woman would want to run out and make you a cuckold, wouldn't she? What if that woman is you? Jiang Junling asked. I will too. Qinitian said with absolute certainty and straightforwardness. Of course I will. Most women don't dare. Even if they want to do it, they can't do it. Because if they dare to do it, her parents, siblings, and the people closest to her will be buried with her stupidity. Jiang Junling smiled gently as if he was talking about something that had nothing to do with him. Of course, she will still be alive and well. Living in my love. Everyone thinks that we should be the model of a loving husband and wife. Jiang Junling gently took a sip of the fully fermented red wine in the glass and said, Don't all the big shots that you know, I know, and we know all do the same? Love? This kind of thing must be quite ridiculous in their eyes, right? Li Shimin killed his brother, son, and daughter and still achieved the hegemony of an eternal emperor. So, for men, it's good to see first, and then look at character. A king without character is always better than 10,000 hoodlums with character, isn't it? From a woman's point of view, she naturally wants a hoodlum with character, not a king without character. Qinitian retorted. Jiang Junling laughed and said, Qinitian, why do you lie to yourself? You're not saying this from a woman's point of view, you're saying this from your own point of view. You don't have to worry about food and clothing, and you're rich enough to rival a country, so you're still longing for that non-existent love. But for most women in the world, if they want to be free of food and clothing, if they want to be rich enough to rival a country, then there's only one way for them to go, to marry a king. Whether that king is a wise ruler or Zhou of Shang or Sui Yang, why would they care about this? If you want to wear the crown, you must bear its weight. As long as you can wear the crown, who cares about that insignificant weight? Qinitian thought about it and really couldn't refute Jiang Junling's words. I'd rather sit in a BMW and cry than sit on the back of a bicycle and laugh. This sentence had become the standard and value of life for most women, and any refutation was weak and powerless. Jiang Junling looked at Qinitian and said, You see, I'm not an exception. I'm just the same as them. My father treats my mother differently. Qinitian finally found a breakthrough point. If a man can't give a woman happiness, then why doesn't the woman find a dog? Jiang Junling looked at Qinitian and said, Are we discussing such a boring topic as what kind of man is a good husband? Of course not, Qinitian said. I'm just trying to tell you what kind of man Qinitian likes. For example? Jiang Junling asked. Qinitian pointed to Fang Yan not far away and said, Right there. He's cute and childish. Sometimes he says some idiotic words and does some childish things. Fang Yan was so angry that he wanted to jump. When did I say idiotic words? When did I do childish things? He stared fiercely at the old man in sunglasses in front of him and said, if you don't move that broken bamboo pole in front of me, I won't be polite to you." The old man in sunglasses didn't move and said, "You can try." "Old man, even if you're blind, you can't be deaf, right? I just knocked down an arrogant Shingy master. I don't mind making you the second." Stepping on the Dragon Tiger Palace, a plum blossom print. Fong's plum blossom pole has reached perfection. You should be the successor of Fong's Tai Chi, right? Fong boy, I'm old friends with your grandfather, so I don't recommend you to take the risk, the old man in sunglasses said in a hoarse voice. It was as if he had a mouthful of sand in his mouth, and every word he said was like chewing sand. It's because you just knocked down Bao Shi that your muscles are tired, your qi and blood are unstable, and your internal organs are injured. If you act rashly again, it'll be difficult to win. You know my grandfather? Fong Yen stared at the old man with his eyes wide open. You can go back and ask if the Fong old man knows his old friend, the fisherman, the hanged ghost fisherman. Fong Yen was shocked. This old man who wore sunglasses and held a small bamboo pole was the hanged ghost who had been famous for decades. He was holding a small bamboo pole and could not help but throw coins at him as soon as he opened his mouth to sing, "Falling Lotus Flower." Fong Yen felt his blood boil, and he was furious. However, his head was suddenly splashed with ice water, and he instantly calmed down. That Jiang Junling. What kind of person is he? Why are all the people following behind him such monsters? The fisherman's dark face turned even darker, and his glasses were about to fall off. He snorted and said, "Fong boy, do you think you can call me hanged ghost?" I'm sorry. Fong Yen quickly apologized and said, "Grandpa fisherman. Since you're my grandfather's good friend, according to seniority, you're my grandfather. You have eyes, but you don't know your grandfather. You deserve to die. However, no matter how I die, I can't be bullied to death. Grandpa fisherman, am I right?" Fong Yen pointed at Jiang Junling who was sitting on the table and said, "That boy has bullied me time and time again. Let's work together and kill him. What do you think? As long as you're on my side, the others behind him won't be a match for us." "Grandpa fisherman, what's wrong? You look very agitated. Does this mean you're agreeing?" The fisherman's hand that was holding the small bamboo pole was trembling slightly. This was an extremely rare sight for a peerless expert. He resisted the urge to beat Fong Yen to death and said, "Boy, if you don't want me to hang you to death now, then shut your mouth." Fong Yen was furious and scolded loudly, "You old man, you just said that you're my grandfather's old friend of many years. My grandfather is known as Mengchang of the Fong family. He's a hero of his generation and has friends all over the world. How can he have such a heartless and shameless friend like you? I'm not borrowing money from you, and I'm not marrying your granddaughter. I just want you to work together with me to beat up a bastard. You're not even willing to help with such a small matter. In the martial world, righteousness is the most important thing. You're acting like a tiger and bullying a friend's descendant. You must have forgotten how to write the word righteousness, right? I'm a language teacher. If you don't know how to write it, then I'll tell you right now. When two people cross each other, the point in the middle is the heart. Touch it, where's your heart? Where's your heart?" The fisherman's hand trembled even more and he said, "Don't speak, please don't speak again." Chapter 228. The Hanged Ghost Fisherman. From his name, one could tell that he was a tranquil, gentle, cold, and patient ghost with the spirit of Jiang Taigong. However, this ghost had been angered by Fong Yen to the point where he wanted to chop this kid down with a rod or hang him on a hook. To think that my old friend was a hero of his generation. People called him Mengchang of the Fong family. How could he have such a descendant? How sad was the Fong family? How unfortunate was his old friend? You won't even let me speak? Fong Yen sneered. Guilty conscience. Hasn't it been like this since ancient times? Do you think that if you shut my mouth, you can shut the mouths of all the heroes in the world? In the future, when my grandfather and his old friends gather, they will casually mention this. That hanged ghost fisherman is old and can't even keep his integrity. He practiced martial arts all his life, but in the end, he became a cart driver for an idiot. What do you think this is? Don't be angry. I didn't say this. I said it in my grandfather's tone. Practicing martial arts is like studying. Who doesn't want their name to be passed down through the ages? Some people will be passed down through the ages with good names, while some will be passed down through the ages with bad names. Which one will you be? Fang Yen tried to persuade the fisherman. Grandpa Fisherman, you are my grandfather's best friend and my elder. A prodigal son is worth 1,000 gold. For you to be able to turn back at such an old age, even a mountain of gold and silver can't be exchanged for that. As long as you promise me that you will fight with me and throw that idiot Jiang Junling into this abyss, I will pretend that I never saw you tonight. If my grandfather asks, I will say that you are a first-class hero. What do you think? Fang Yen did not give up and wanted to save him again. Having an old man at home was like having a treasure. This little old man with such good martial arts was also his grandfather's good friend. If he was sent to the Thousand Leaves army, that old monster would definitely like him very much, right? The so-called duel between the strong was this kind of expert against an expert. Fang Yen felt that he was not qualified at all and was not worthy of their pretentiousness. You inexperienced child. You little brat. The fisherman clenched the bamboo pole in his hand so hard that it made cracking sounds. A man's promise is worth 10,000 gold. This is what I owe him. Unless I die, don't even think about walking past me. You are hopeless. Fang Yen looked at the fisherman and sighed. While the fisherman was being attacked by Fang Yan's words and was on the verge of collapsing, Qin Tian was praising Fang Yen endlessly. But he was kind at heart. Every word he said came from his heart, and he strived to be fair and just in everything he did. Women had to take on two extremely important roles in their lives, wife and mother. When a woman married a man, regardless of whether she had children or not, she would immediately enter into these two roles. Which wife didn't want their husband to be humorous and funny, to say and do things that made her feel better? Which mother doesn't want their child to have a childlike heart, 20% kindness, 30% health, and 45% talent? He was knowledgeable and familiar with the classics. He was skilled, and even the Xingyi master Bao Shi was no match for him. He would bring his students to study in Keihe, and he would accompany his students to learn Alley in the Rain, in the Alley in the Rain. He was gentle and refined, but also sharp and unkind. Jiang Junling's hand holding the glass trembled slightly. Did the kind of man she was talking about really exist in this world? He didn't know if such a man existed, but he knew that it was definitely not the guy behind him. He was despicable, and he held a long sword in his hand. Being despicable was a mockery of life and a carefree attitude. The sword was responsibility and protection, as well as hot-bloodedness and friendship. He could bend his body, but he could also stand tall. He wasn't sunlight, but when you saw him, it was like seeing sunlight. He wasn't dew, but he had the romance of rain and the feelings of dew. He was a human, a living human. He wasn't an animal without emotions and kindness. This is the kind of man I like. This is the reason why you brought him here? Isn't it enough? To be able to receive such high praise from Qin Tian, this man is really lucky. No, I'm the lucky one, Qin Tian said. I met him. He's not married, and I'm not married either. How lucky is this? Of course, I'm still working hard. I believe that he can't escape from the palm of my hand. It's a wonderful feeling to hear a little girl praise another man, Jiang Junling said. This must be the most uncomfortable thing in the world, right? No. Qin Tian shook his head. There's something even more uncomfortable. What? Pa. There was a muffled sound under the table. Then, Jiang Junling's expression changed drastically. His calm and gentle expression finally disappeared. The skin and flesh on his face twisted together, almost turning into a wild chrysanthemum. Look, you're even more uncomfortable now than before, aren't you? Qin Tian said with a chuckle. Jiang Junling's hand gripped the tablecloth tightly and said, I miscalculated. You wouldn't have done this kind of thing before. Of course. Qin Tian said. I used to pay attention to my image. You all say that I'm a goddess, and I also think that I'm a goddess, so I have to maintain my goddess-like appearance. What about now? In this regard, I've always done very well. Qin Tian said with a smile. It's just that gods can also be angry. It wasn't easy for me to trick my male god to accompany me for a meal, a glass of wine, and a chat while watching the sunset. In the end, you sent a bully to provoke me and sent a lackey to kill me. You ruined everything. I really want to slap you 100 or 200 times. No one has ever hit me. You're the first. Jiang Junling said. I've hit 80 idiots, if not 100. So I don't think this is something to be proud of. Seeing that Jiang Junling's expression was not right, Lu Qingming and others quickly rushed over. Are you okay, young master? Lu Qingming asked with concern. Some people wanted to rush toward Qin Tian, but Jiang Junling stopped them. I look forward to seeing you next time, Jiang Junling said. He pushed the chair away and stood up. Surrounded by a group of people, he walked toward the parking lot of the 10 Feet Abyss Hotel. However, his legs were tightly clamped, and his walking posture was a bit weird. Lu Qingming helped to open the car door, while Jiang Junling sat in the back without saying a word. Lu Qingming thought about it and took the initiative to sit in the front passenger seat of the car. Bao Shi had already woken up when he was lifted up. He struggled to walk to the front of Jiang Junling. He covered his mouth and coughed violently, saying, I'm old, and my fists are slow. I broke in front of a young man, and I even made young Master lose face. After this matter, I'll go back to my hometown. I really don't have the face to stay by young Master's side anymore. Jiang Junling looked at Bao Shi with a smile and said, Mr. Bao, you did very well. It's better than I expected. Thank you, young master. Have a good rest, Jiang Junling said in a gentle voice. It seemed that the person who said, let me kill him, had nothing to do with him. As the car started to move, Jiang Junling looked out of the window and thought about something. There are still 19 days left, right? Jiang Junling asked. Young master, what do you mean 19 days left? Lu Qingming asked. He took over the job of entertaining a big shot from Yan Jing like Jiang Junling, and it was Lu Shu who accompanied him in the past. Therefore, he didn't know much about Lu Shu's character, and he didn't have the opportunity to participate in many secret things. For the past few days, he had been watching and learning. However, he didn't know how to answer Jiang Junling's inexplicable question. Jiang Junling seemed to be in a good mood as he explained, known as the Light of the North, the #1 swordsman in Japan, Chiba Bin, has issued a challenge to Fang Yan. There are 19 days left until the day of their duel. Lu Qingming's eyes lit up. So, young master wants Mr. Bao to challenge Fang Yan. Messing up his state of mind, exhausting his body, hurting his internal organs. Mr. Bao has already buried a bomb in his body. When Fang Yan and Chiba Bin fight for their lives, this bomb will suddenly explode. How can I let Mr. Bao kill someone in public? Jiang Junling said. Of course, if Mr. Bao is killed, it's because he's not skilled enough. However, Fang Yan's happy life as a murderer will come to an end. Watching the sunrise and drinking good wine will be punished by heaven. What a pity. Lu Qingming said. Mr. Bao forced him, but he didn't kill him. So, he's smarter than I thought. Jiang Junling said. If he can escape from Chiba Bin's sword 19 days later, then he will be qualified to be my real opponent. Lu Qingming pondered for a moment and finally couldn't help but say, young master, if he didn't interfere, our Lu family's plan would have succeeded. Shut up. Jiang Junling shouted coldly. Lu Qingming, what does your Lu family's plan have to do with me? What does your success or failure have to do with me? Lu Qingming realized that he had violated a taboo, so he quickly corrected and said, I know. Our Lu family's plan has nothing to do with young master. Young master didn't participate in anything, so he doesn't know anything. Lu Qingming secretly glanced at Jiang Junling's expression from the rearview mirror and found that Jiang Junling was staring at him with a burning gaze. He didn't know what Jiang Junling was thinking. What a difficult guy to get along with. Lu Qingming sighed in his heart. For the first time, he looked forward to Lu Shu's recovery. But since you want to plant a bomb in Fang Yan's body, why don't you let the fisherman plant a second bomb in his body? Lu Qingming asked. When he saw Jiang Junling's murderous eyes, he once again realized that he had stepped on a landmine. He probably didn't have the confidence to win, right? Chapter 229. Once Jiang Junling was far away, the fisherman put away his bamboo pole. He looked at Fang Yan thoughtfully and said, Not bad, kid. You're not as inflexible as your grandfather. You're as inflexible as my grandfather. If you accept my suggestion, there's nothing we can't do if we work together. The fisherman snorted coldly and slowly walked outside. Fang Yan was very helpless against this old man who didn't know how to be flexible. If he agreed to betray them, the two of them would have long thrown Jiang Junling and the group of minions behind him into the abyss. Fang Yan walked in front of Qinitian and said with a smile, The steak is cold. I've lost my appetite too, Qinitian said with some annoyance. The steak could be made again if it was cold, but if the good mood was gone, that would be really infuriating. The scenery is still here. Let's go out for a walk. Fang Yan took the initiative to invite them. Of course. Qinitian nodded. But before that, can I trouble you to do me a small favor? Fang Yan squatted down and picked up Qinitian's high heels from under the table and handed them to her. The girl had secretly untied the laces of the high heels and used them as a hidden weapon to attack Jiang Junling. Although the action was a little unsightly, the effect was obvious. Fang Yan saw Jiang Junling's strange walking posture when he left. He must have had a hard time holding it in. Help me put it on, Qinitian said coquettishly as she extended her smooth, jade-like feet in front of Fang Yan. Fang Yan shifted his gaze and said with a straight face, Put it on yourself. Qinitian smiled. She knew that Fang Yan wouldn't ignore her identity as a teacher. She wanted to close the distance, but he kicked her away. It was a little annoying. Qinitian took the shoes and put them on. Looking at the messy restaurant in front of him, Qinitian beckoned Wu Yiwei over and said, Calculate how we should compensate you for your losses. Wu Yiwei thanked her gratefully and said, Miss Qin, you don't have to worry about this matter. When Mr. Zhang left, he told us to put all our losses on his account. I've brought you a lot of trouble today, please forgive me. Although those guys were wretched, they still did their job well on the surface. Qinitian generously waved his hand and said, This matter has nothing to do with you. As the sun set in the west, the myriad rays of light in the sky had already converged, leaving behind only a patch of red that had not been wiped clean. Fang Yan and Qinitian walked side by side on the mountain path, stepping on the green grass and red flowers, facing the thin mist and cool breeze. It was quite comfortable. Qinitian didn't speak, and Fang Yan didn't want to either. Both of them had their own thoughts, and only the sound of their feet stepping on the grass could be heard. Some insects were disturbed by them, chirping and running away. What are you thinking about? Qinitian broke the silence and asked. I'm thinking about how many people are paying attention to the Battle of One Sword Peak in 19 days, Fang Yan said. It seems that this matter has been spread out maliciously. If you accept, then you may be killed by the Qinya army. If you refuse, the Fang family's reputation will be damaged, and the Fang family will be humiliated. It's quite difficult, Qinitian said. You see, even you know about this matter, so it's inevitable that those people with ulterior motives are adding fuel to the fire. Fang Yan smiled bitterly. What I'm worried about is that if everyone is like your old friend, General Ling, and brings 3 to 5 experts to challenge me, I'm afraid that I'll be beaten to death by them before the final battle even arrives. Qinitian smiled and said, at that time, I was really worried that you would hurt someone. You were worried that I would kill someone, weren't you? Fang Yan shook his head gently. I'm not as stupid as he thinks. Jiang Junling is very conceited and sinister. He appeared in the 10 feet abyss unintentionally, but he instantly thought of a way to put you in a dilemma. Whether it's young thug's provocation or Bao Shi's challenge, they're all foreshadowing the Battle of One Sword Peak in 19 days. He's a very generous person, and young thug's provocation shouldn't be his doing. Lu Qingming is a member of the Lu family, and the young man who just replaced Lu Shu doesn't know you well enough, so it's reasonable for him to test you with a playboy. However, he pushed Dragon Master Bao Shi out to challenge you. That's his intention. The Southern Dragon and the Northern Phoenix. The Dragon and the Phoenix are the kings of the Xing-Yi sect, and they're worshipped by all the Xing-Yi disciples. How could they be defeated so easily? As a Grandmaster, he challenged a nameless kid like me, but he still held back his strength in the Battle of Honor. Why? Fang Yan sneered. He didn't want to kill anyone, and he didn't want to be Jiang Junling's scapegoat. That's why I'm handing the initiative to you. Qinitian smiled. They're both smart people. Isn't Jiang Junling disappointed? He should be a little disappointed, Qinitian said. He doesn't make a move easily, but he's never lost. He wants young thug to ruin my state of mind, and Dragon Master Bao Shi to exhaust my energy and strength. It would be best if Dragon Master Bao Shi killed me. Then, everything will be over. If I kill Bao Shi it won't be over. In front of so many people, I'm afraid no one would dare to protect a murderer, right? Fang Yan looked at Qinitian and said, at that time, your Mr. Fang will become a murderer that everyone hates and fears. In my opinion, someone who can easily throw a punch is just a martial artist. However, a real martial artist is someone who knows when to pull back his fist. Qinitian looked at Fang Yan with bright eyes and said, I could hear their regret, but I was relieved at that moment. Fang Yan, you're different from others. But I was still tricked by Jiang Junling. Fang Yan shook his head with a bitter smile and said, don't make me sound so great. I pulled back my fist because I was forced by the situation. After I defeated Bao Shi, Jiang Junling immediately restrained himself. He didn't let the fisherman fight because he was worried that if the fisherman couldn't defeat me, it wouldn't be easy for him to leave the 10 feet abyss. He would have to suffer some humiliation. What about you? Qinitian asked with interest. The fisherman blocked your way, but you didn't attack him. This is not like you. Do you think you can't win? Who knows if I can win before fighting? Fang Yan sighed softly. Jiang Junling has a strong army. After defeating Bao Shi, there will be a hanged ghost fisherman. After defeating the hanged ghost fisherman, does he have no other good cards? He can keep changing cards, but I only have one card in my hand. If I lose, I won't have a chance to start again. So, I have to be careful. I'm not a loser, but I'm just a teacher. I can't compare to those rich young masters who have hundreds of millions of dollars in their hands. But he returned in defeat. I'm also holding my breath, Fang Yan said. So, you're saying that you're evenly matched this time? No, he won, Fang Yan said. Tai Chi is all about calmness. It's hard to have the heart of Tai Chi if the heart is not calm. It's hard to enter the state of Tai Chi if your Chi is not in harmony. After being tormented by him like that, how could I maintain my calm state? What's the most important thing to me right now? It's the Battle of Single Sword Peak in 19 days. I know it, and he knows it too. So, he brought me so much trouble with just a wave of his hand. I'm exhausted from dealing with it, and I have to find a way to calm my heart and Chi. Say, why is that bastard so annoying? Qinitian felt guilty. I'm the one who dragged you down. If he hadn't dragged Fang Yan to the 10-feet abyss for a meal, he wouldn't have met Jiang Junling. If he hadn't met Jiang Junling, so many things wouldn't have happened and destroyed Fang Yan's inner peace. Fang Yan shook his head. How does Jiang Junling treat you? On the surface, he's close, but deep down, he's distant, Qin Tian said. Perhaps he is estranged from everyone. Do you think that Jiang Junling attacked me because of you? Qin Tian looked puzzled. He looked at Fang Yan and asked, is there any other reason? I don't understand. Fang Yan shook his head and sighed. But, I have a feeling that things aren't that simple. Do you still remember the scene when I first met Jiang Junling? At that time, I felt that the way he looked at me was a bit strange. It wasn't friendly, but it wasn't hostile. It was just, like he was familiar with me. You know, I practice Tai Chi, so I'm very sensitive to things around me. I can more or less sense other people's attitudes toward me. It's hard to hide my Tai Chi heart from others, even if they're sincere or perfunctory. I think your Tai Chi practice must be very bad, right? Qin Tian said. Why do you say that? Fang Yan asked. He felt that he had practiced it quite well. He was the only one in the Fang family who could enter the Tai Chi state at this age. Even if all the other Tai Chi practitioners in Huaxia were included, how many of them could enter the Tai Chi state? If it's really as you said, that Tai Chi can sense other people's likes and dislikes toward you. I've made it so obvious. Why can't you feel it at all? Qin Tian asked doubtfully. Fang Yan smiled bitterly. He looked around and saw a few red wild fruits on the trees on the mountainside. He ran over and picked the fruits. He walked to Qin Tian and handed them to her, saying, I learned from Jiang Junling that today is your birthday. It seems that I didn't have time to prepare a gift. Happy birthday. Perfunctory. Qin Tian didn't reach out to take the fruits. You don't want me to throw them away? Fang Yan asked. Qin Tian snatched the fruit from Fang Yan's hand and said, take it home and feed it to the pigs. Chapter 230. Of course, those wild fruits were not taken by Qin Tian to feed to the pigs. Moreover, her family did not raise pigs. This fruit, which was called wild plum by Fang Yan, was washed with spring water, and with a crunched sound, he took a big bite and chewed it in his mouth. A sour and astringent juice immediately flowed into his mouth, and then spread to his internal organs. At that moment, his body would shiver a few times, and his body would shake non-stop, as if someone had poured a basin of ice water on him in the winter. When he gradually got used to this taste, his mouth would also regain its feeling. The sourness was still the same, but there was a faint sweetness, which made people feel refreshed. On a big stone, Fang Yan and Qin Tian were eating this wild fruit. This kind of wild plum should be eaten with steak. Fang Yan said. If I knew this, I would have listened to them and bought a piece of steak here, and picked a few wild plums and washed them. A mouthful of greasy beef, and then a bite of this sour wild fruit. The taste must be very good. It's a pity that I didn't know there was such a treasure land, and such a celestial fruit in the world. Qin Tian swallowed the flesh in his mouth, looked at Fang Yan and said, even if you knew there was such a treasure land, and such celestial fruit in the world, if someone asked you to pack it and give up your seat, you would not pack it and give up your seat. Fang Yan, you are very arrogant. More arrogant than you? More arrogant than me. Fang Yan smiled and said, Qin Tian, I know you are smart, so I can't tell you to study hard and not waste time. I know you are rich, so I can't tell you to work hard for your future and future. To be honest, I am under a lot of pressure as your teacher. Because I found that I really have nothing to teach you. What I have, you have. What I don't have, you also have. A student is so much better than a teacher. This is a disaster for a teacher. Although I am not your teacher in reality, I am your teacher in name. So, you have to respect me, and I will love you. Teachers and students should be like this, and only like this. Do you understand what I mean? Fang Yan shook his head with a smile and said, "You are so smart, you will definitely understand." Fang Yan felt that there were some things that he should make clear to Qinitian. Even if she was not a qualified teacher, Qinitian was not an ordinary student. However, a teacher was a teacher and a student was a student. From his standpoint, he would choose to keep a distance from these students. It was for this purpose that he agreed to accompany Qinitian for dinner. Qinitian stopped chewing. He threw the half-eaten wild plum into the canyon and walked to the stream to wash his hands. She squatted beside the pool and looked at Fang Yan, who was not far away. She asked, "Fang Yan, do you think I will listen to you?" Fang Yan was stunned. He thought about it and answered honestly, "No." "Correct answer," Qinitian said. Fang Yan felt very helpless. All the words he had said just now were all for nothing. "Fang Yan, you have your excuses to run away. I have my reasons to persist." Qinitian easily resolved the dilemma that Fang Yan had put out. She had drawn a clear line between them and each other. In her eyes, this was not a big deal. "I know that my birthday is the most important day in a girl's eyes. Dragging you out to eat and chat has brought you a lot of pressure. You are worried that you will be attacked and criticized when the matter is exposed. You are afraid of the rumors of the world. You want to maintain your current state of mind and live a comfortable life. I can understand all of this. I don't want others to celebrate my birthday with me because I don't like the false flattery and the illusory luxury. I am tired when others are tired. Why make things difficult for others and myself? I don't want to celebrate my birthday alone. Although this day is no different from other days, I still hope that it can be a little different. I don't have any friends in Huacheng. You are the first person I thought of. I didn't tell you that today is my birthday because I don't want you to think about the age gap between us. I don't need you to give me a gift. You coming to celebrate my birthday with me is already the best gift. Saying so much is really affecting my goddess image. But I want to tell you that I am happy and I have no regrets. Please enjoy it." The next sentence made Fang Yan jump in anger. He wanted to jump off the big rock he was sitting on and die. Qinitian glanced at Fang Yan lightly and said, "Because, objection is invalid." This was Qinitian. No one could change what she had decided. You could say that she was stubborn, unruly, or even that she didn't know how to love herself and didn't care about others' feelings. But, she was Qinitian. She had countless strengths, but she also had many weaknesses. Others called her a goddess, but she would smile when she was happy and throw things when she was angry. She was a living little girl who looked forward to some changes and longed for some romance. Love or not, it was all up to fate. Suddenly, Fang Yan's scalp tightened. His body suddenly pounced towards Qinitian, who was standing by the stream not far away. Like a goshawk hunting a rabbit. Qinitian was shocked. Just a few words, why was he so angry? Plop. Fang Yan hugged Qinitian and the two of them fell into the stream. Boom, a black bird flying above Qinitian's head suddenly exploded where he was standing. There was a rumbling sound and flames were everywhere. What was more terrifying was that the black bird's body exploded. Balls of green liquid splattered everywhere. Anything that came into contact with the green liquid was immediately burned into black charcoal. From this, it could be seen how shocking the destructive power of the poison was. If Fang Yan hadn't pushed Qinitian away in time, the charming Qinitian would have been roasted into a small piece of charred bone. Fang Yan and Qinitian's bodies sank to the bottom of the stream. A few seconds after the explosion sounded, they floated up from the water. After looking around and finding no danger, he pulled Qinitian up from the bottom of the water. Qinitian was pushed into the stream by Fang Yan without any defense. Moreover, his back was facing the ground. His mouth and nose were continuously swallowed several mouthfuls of water. After being pulled up, he began to cough violently. The clothes on her body were wet, and it was even more crowded around her exquisite body. There were also a few parts of her body exposed. Fang Yen quickly looked away. He took off his coat, unscrewed the water inside, and draped it over Chinitian's shoulders. He looked at the blackened grass and stones, and then at the few balls of green liquid floating on the water. He couldn't help but feel a little scared. If the liquid had passed through the water and dripped onto the two of them, wouldn't the consequences be disastrous? They should have a backup plan, Fang Yen said. He grabbed Chinitian's arm and said, "Let's go back to the Zhang Yuan restaurant." The nearest building was the Zhang Yuan restaurant. There were many people there, and presumably, the killers wouldn't dare to be too unscrupulous. If they wanted to run down the mountain, it would create more space and opportunities for the killers to attack. Chinitian didn't panic, nor did she resist. Her eyes were just able to open. She just quickly ran to the foot of the hill under Fang Yan's lead. Crack, a crisp sound was heard. Chinitian frowned slightly and said, "The heel broke." In order to have a romantic birthday and to make Fang Yan feel stunned at first sight, she wore a beautiful dress with high heels. Now that the heel of the high heels was stuck in a crack in the stone, it was naturally difficult for her to run. Fang Yan didn't have time to help her change her shoes and rub her feet. He quickly turned around, carried Chinitian by the waist, and rushed to the foot of the mountain with his low body. If he were alone, he would have 10,000 ways to solve the problem. However, he had Chinitian in his arms, so there was only one way to solve the problem: escape. Bang! A big stone on his left was smashed, and a fist-sized stone was blasted away. Sniper. There was a sniper. Fang Yan didn't dare to be careless, nor did he dare to take a straight path. His body swayed left and right, and his route was drunk and sweaty, but he ran as fast as a rabbit. Bang! Another stone was blasted away where Fang Yan had just landed. Fang Yan didn't have a rhythm when he ran, but the sniper had a very good sense of rhythm. He didn't rush, and every shot could bring great pressure to Fang Yan. Fang Yan didn't dare to run anymore, but found a stone forest to hide. Don't compete with the sniper's rhythm, let alone compete with their speed. If your rhythm was controlled by them, only death awaited you. Fang Yan stopped, and the sniper stopped firing. Fang Yan couldn't see the sniper's position and movement, but Fang Yan knew that the sniper must have a panoramic view of their every move through the scope. The sniper was high up, and they were low down. They had sniper rifles, and Fang Yan only had Chinitian. This was an unfair war. Chinitian's body leaned against the big stone, and Fang Yan used his body to block in front of her. This had nothing to do with love, but morality. He was a teacher at Rosefinch High School, and Chinitian was his student. Even if it was a bad student like Xinguodong, Fang Yan was willing to carry him up from the mountainside with ropes on his back, and Chinitian was no exception. It was natural for a teacher to protect his students. Unless he died, or someone else couldn't touch his students. No matter what the purpose of those people was, and in what name. Chinitian breathed like orchids, and stared at Fang Yan's thin-side face with burning eyes. "What are you looking at?" Fang Yan asked. He was very uncomfortable by the girl's bold eyes. While his whole body was alert, he couldn't help but ask. "You are a hero, and I am a beauty. Even if we die today, others will say that we are a match made in heaven." Chinitian said with a smile. "I want to hear others praise me like that." Chapter 231. In the eyes of outsiders, Chinitian was a goddess, but in Chinitian's eyes, Chinitian was a woman. In Fang Yan's eyes, Chinitian was a crazy woman. The biological bomb that had turned into a wild bird was brutally bombarded, the mysterious sniper was fatally locked down, there was a tiger behind them, and there was a wolf in front of them. If they were not careful, they could lose their lives here. She didn't look for a way to escape, but looked forward to being praised. After being pushed into a stream and drinking a few mouthfuls of muddy water, her IQ had dropped to this level. Make a call. Call the police, Fang Yen said in a deep voice. He tore his jacket off Qin Etienne's shoulders and threw it at a spot where the boulder couldn't cover. Bang! Before the coat could fall to the ground, it was pierced by a bullet. What was even more frightening was that the force of the bullet was too great. His drenched clothes were like a jumping rabbit as he was sent flying a few steps away by the bullet before falling to the ground with a thud. They were still locked down by the sniper rifle. The sniper didn't move casually. He was still in his original position, patiently waiting for his prey to jump out. In other words, the slightest carelessness could lead to a headshot. After confirming that the sniper didn't move, Fang Yen was relieved. Although a sniper rifle was powerful, it was a long-range attack weapon. If he hid behind the big rock and didn't show his head, could his sniper rifle penetrate the big rock that was taller than a person? One side was the victim, and the other side was the attacker. The longer it took, the more advantageous it would be for Fang Yen and the others. Those guys were all vampires hiding in dark corners. Although they were extremely dangerous, they couldn't see the light of day. Qin Etienne didn't call the police. He looked at Fang Yen and said, "My bag is still on the top of the mountain. Where can I call the police with my phone?" Qin Etienne loved to see Fang Yan's tense expression, his eyes sharp, and his side profile alert. It was said that men who worked hard were the sexiest. Qin Etienne felt that men who showed their brave, strong, and responsible side in life and death situations were the most fatal charm to women. Even in such a difficult environment, Qin Etienne did not feel much danger, because Fang Yen gave her an extraordinary sense of security. Which woman doesn't lack a sense of security? Even if she was a goddess. Athena still had Saint Seiya behind her. She believed that Fang Yen would be able to solve these problems. They were like chickens and dogs that could not withstand a single blow. Only now did Fang Yen remember that when he and Qin Etienne were sitting on a big rock at the top of the mountain and eating wild plums, Qin Etienne's handbag was placed on the grass. Later, Qin Etienne walked to the stream to wash his hands, and then he pushed her into the water. After he scooped her up, he immediately ran down the mountain. How could he care about her handbag? Fang Yen reached into his trouser pocket, and his cell phone was gone. Obviously, when he pushed Qin Etienne into the stream, the cell phone had sunk to the bottom of the water. Without a cell phone and communication device, he could only wait for outside rescue. Fang Yen did not look at Qin Etienne's face. Now he had more important things to do. He said, "Where is your bodyguard?" "The little old man who often comes to pick you up in a luxury car." "I can see that he is a master. He didn't follow me out," Qin Etienne said. "As long as he is with you, he will automatically avoid you. He also thinks that you are good at martial arts and that you can protect me." What a beautiful misunderstanding. Fang Yen smiled bitterly. If he had a bodyguard like the little old man, he would take him wherever he went. Tall, thin, elegant, and good at martial arts, such a guy could only open the car door for you. Could he be compared with those guys who drove Ferrari sports cars? No matter which bar or which barbecue stall he went to, he could be an invincible existence. Why was Jiang Junling so arrogant? Wasn't it because he had several such little old men as bodyguards? Otherwise, Fang Yen would have already beaten him to the point that even his mother couldn't recognize him. "He is an old man in my family. He watched me grow up. I have worked hard to pursue a man, and I haven't succeeded yet. He couldn't bear to see it anymore, so as long as I am with you, he won't appear by my side. Even he knows about the matter between you and me?" Fang Yen had a feeling that he wanted to vomit blood. A student likes his teacher. His parents will soon come to the door, right? "You know that I am a person who doesn't like to lie," Qin Etienne said. "This is not a shameful thing. Could it be that your parents also know about it?" Fang Yen asked cautiously. Even though he had done everything in the right way and thought that nothing had ever happened between him and Qin Etienne, he still couldn't believe it. Moreover, he had always regarded Qin Etienne's pursuit as a child's naughtiness and game. That was all. What do these little kids know about like and love? If there is one person in this world that I can't lie to, that person must be my mother. You mean that your mother knows? Although my mother is smarter than my father, she won't hide anything from my father. It's over. Fang Yan had such a thought in his mind. Qin Etienne's mouth was slightly raised. When she smiled, there was an amazing and beautiful arc. She looked at Fang Yan playfully and said, "Let me tell you a piece of good news." "What good news?" "Detailed information such as your birth, how many times you peeped on the bed when you were a child, whether you peeped on the neighbor's little beauty when she was bathing, etc. It has probably appeared on my parents' desk several times." Qin Etienne said. "My mother has a bad habit of investigating other people's privacy." "What kind of good news is this?" Fang Yan said while gritting his teeth. He could imagine that if Qin Etienne was born in a huge family. She kept shouting that she liked him. Wouldn't her family investigate him thoroughly? Even if he had a few strands of hair on his body and a bowl-sized scar on his calf, they would still be able to see it clearly. Fang Yan was very sad and felt that he was running naked. What was even sadder was that he only knew that he was running naked after running naked for a long time. Shouldn't a student liking a teacher be done in secret? For example, he often received love letters from the paper cranes. The girl didn't even dare to leave his name. How could Qin Etienne keep talking about it all over the world? They know of your existence, but they never say anything to stop it. Qin Etienne looked at Fang Yan's worried look and said, "Isn't this good news?" "You mean, your parents don't object to us being together?" Although Fang Yan felt that it was strange to ask such a question, he had to say that he was still a little happy in his heart. Think about it. A girl like Qin Etienne, her parents must be quite excellent humans. Being appreciated and accepted by such excellent people, doesn't it also prove that I am the same kind of person as them? Who doesn't want to be the same kind of person as excellent people? Of course. Qin Etienne said. There is another possibility. What possibility? They don't put you in their eyes at all. Qin Etienne said. Fang Yan covered his chest with one hand. He felt that there must be a hole made by a sniper bullet. Otherwise, how could he feel the burning pain? Very quickly, he remembered that if the bullet had really pierced through his chest, he would already be in Qin Etienne's arms saying his last words to her. Don't ever like me again in your next life. I just want to be a quiet, beautiful man. But Qin Etienne's eyes lit up. Then, he closed his eyes and died a natural and unrestrained death. What's the matter with the burning pain? Some people are called bitches because they run when you chase them. When Fang Yan heard that Qin Etienne's parents knew of his existence, he was a little angry in his heart. As a child, if you let your family know that you have puppy love at school, wouldn't it make your parents worry and embarrass the teacher? However, when Qin Etienne said that in his parents' eyes, he actually didn't exist at all, he felt indignant in his heart. Don't force me, don't force me. I will accept your daughter's pursuit when I go crazy. Whoosh. A knife was stabbed from top to bottom. The woman's body was extremely soft, as if there were no bones in her whole body. She appeared behind the big rock that Fang Yan and the others were leaning against, and then jumped high over the huge rock that was taller than a person. She held a triangular thorn in her hands and stabbed it from top to bottom towards the top of Fang Yan's head. If she stabbed him, Fang Yan would become the world's first human sausage. He would be roasted on the charcoal fire, and then he would tear off his arm and eat it with soy sauce and garlic. Fang Yan couldn't move. He sat there like an old monk in meditation. He couldn't rush up to meet the enemy, and he couldn't roll forward to easily avoid this killer move. Because when the woman above his head stabbed him with the knife, there was a man in black on the left running towards Qin Etienne. He couldn't let himself get hurt, and he couldn't let Qin Etienne get hurt. This was the responsibility of a teacher. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, this was the sound made by the friction between the body and the air. The woman above his head was faster, and the triangular thorn in her hand fell even faster. 3 feet, 2 feet, 1 foot, Fang Yan could even hear the sound of the sharp knife cutting his hair, and the sharp tip of the thin weapon was about to be inserted into his scalp. It was a close call. Whoosh! Fang Yen finally made his move, and he grabbed the back of the woman's hand that was holding the knife handle. The woman's body was supported by one hand, and she was lifted in the air in a very strange inverted position. At the same time, Fang Yen punched with his left hand. The man in black who tried to grab Qin Etian from the side had just reached out his hand, and Fang Yen punched him. Crack! The fingers of the man in black were broken, and even his whole arm was sent flying. The teacher's student couldn't be bullied, and the teacher's dignity couldn't be tarnished. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.